From the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio, this is 365 Sports. Presented by IdealMRI.com. Premium quality MRIs, convenient, affordable. That's ideal. And by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. Now it's time for 365 Sports.
And there's a lot going on the second day of the NCAA tournament. A near shocker earlier today, a half-court shot that goes overtime. We'll get to college basketball and update you on the games that are going on right now and how the Big 12 has done so far today. All of that, Craig Smoak to my right, Paul Catalina is to my left, and we do appreciate you for being here with us over the next couple of 3 hours. Here's the sad news today. Chuck Norris, 87 years old, passed away. It's like almost like, is that possible? He's like that doesn't happen. But he, of course, like anything else with Father Time, Paul's going to do a top five at the end of the show on Chuck Norris. But Chuck Norris, the unbeatable Chuck Norris, again, Father Time.
Yeah, 86 years old, died today, and so much part of the kind of American culture. Chuck Norris, and years ago it was Chuck Norris jumps in water, he doesn't get wet, the water gets Chuck Norris, and all those Chuck Norris jokes, which were hilarious. But he was really part of the big wave of karate and action stars. And while nobody's ever going to, put him up there with Daniel Day-Lewis as the best actors, he certainly did help usher in an entire genre of film in American culture.
Yeah, sad news for fans of Chuck Norris. He provided a lot of comedic moments, action moments, all sorts of toes dipped in the water of Hollywood, and not a guy afraid to make fun of himself. Not a guy afraid to just kind of be funny or serious or whatever he needed to be. I can't tell you how many things I actually took in that were actual works of his. Like I saw an episode of Walker, Texas Ranger here and there maybe when it was like the only thing on pre-Netflix days. And I think it used to run on the USA Network all the time, and it would come on and I would see bits and pieces of it. I'm not sure if I ever watched a movie of his all the way through, because that genre wasn't really one that I watched all that much growing up. But yeah, I mean, he was an American icon, and you didn't need to see all of his work to appreciate him or to know who Chuck Norris was. So yeah, definitely one of those 80s, 70s, 80s action stars that I don't know how many of those types of guys we have anymore, the Stallones, the Schwarzeneggers, the Chuck Norrises, those types of guys. We got some action stars, but it's not the same as those like 80s guys where it was like Predator and
Chuck Norris never did, now, if you think about the action stars like Alan Richman, who's Reacher, or Jason Momoa, they'll turn around, they'll do a lot of action stuff, but they'll turn around and do something that is so far out of that realm, like a hardcore drama or something like that, where Chuck Norris, there was no kicking in the movie, there wasn't a movie. He wasn't going to, they were going to hand him a script and he's going to be like, all right, I'm on page 7 and no one's gotten kicked in the face yet. What is going on here?
Yeah, and he's responsible for, probably one of the earliest memes, I would say. Just the Chuck Norris can destroy anything meme, basically. Is I don't know how you would officially title that. But, a guy with a renowned amount of respect and a great entertainer and a hell of a athlete as well. So, yeah, R.I.P. to Chuck Norris. I can't get too sad when guys are 86 years old, though. I mean, that's a nice long life. So I know family and friends would probably have loved him to have seen to 100 and whatnot. But it's 86 years old. That's a nice long time on this earth. So I think he got the maximization of what he had as far as the time that he got, and made the most of it. So R.I.P.
You guys are a lot farther away from that 86 or 87, but that's a full life. Great guy. Just so many people just admired him, and he has passed away. So we got a couple of college football notes first, and then we're gonna dig into the games going on and the games that have been played, and also some hellacious games from last night too. The new targeting rule has been approved, Craig and Paul, for 2026, and I like what they've done because I always thought the original The original wasn't bad, and then it got where you're ejected from the game and miss maybe a part of another game. Matt Zenitz with the story right there with everybody else. We had it too. But do you like the new rules of what they have changed?
Yeah, I don't think there should have been an ejection on the first penalty anyway. I think it should be a 15-yard penalty, but 15-yard penalty and ejecting somebody on the first one, I always thought was not good, especially in a game. Now, in suspensions and all that should come after. So it shouldn't be on the referees to know that, number 17 for Oklahoma State had a targeting penalty last week, and if he gets one this week, he should be ejected. He should be ejected if it's the second one in the game. And then if he continues to get them, then the league office can deal with his suspensions after that.
Yeah, if it becomes like chronic or obviously something that somebody doesn't learn from the first or second penalty or ejection, you got to nail them even more.
Well, to explain to folks what you're talking about here, the approval was for a 1-year trial to modify the penalty when players are penalized. So a player disqualified for targeting for the first time, regardless of when that occurs, does get to participate in the next game. If you get targeting a second time, then you have to miss the first half of the next game. So rather than it being automatic from the jump, that first targeting rule, you're okay. You're not going to miss the first half of the next game because you got the targeting in the second half of your opener or anything like that. That goes out the window. But if you do it a second time, which as we saw by the numbers didn't happen all that frequently, there was very few incidences of guys having multiple targeting penalties. But just for the guy that might, the second time you miss the first half. And if there's a third targeting penalty, which at that point you're just headhunting most likely, you will be required to miss an entire game. So I think that's pretty important to note. Kind of the details of this proposal that's now gone through. Nobody had 3 strikes last year, but there is a 3 strikes rule now. Now, after the second one, there can be an appeal by the conference that can go over not only the second one, but the first one as well. And that will undergo review by the coordinator, the NCAA coordinator of officials, who will then take on a video review of whatever you're looking at, the first or the second one that you're trying to appeal. And if that call gets overturned, then that player will be able to play without sitting half the first half of the next game. So basic gist of it is 3 strikes, you're out for a full game. 1 strike, you still are okay. 2 strikes, you are missing a half of football. But this is only, to be very clear, a trial. This is for next season. This is not set in stone, the rules moving forward. But it wasn't the only rule. I think just on the targeting, though, it was a good call. I think, especially if the data says nobody's done this 3 times. And the first time thing, there's just too many incidences where it affects a player playing in a playoff or a national championship game, and he's missing a whole half of football of a biggest game on the schedule because he inadvertently hit a guy and caused targeting. You give him one mulligan. And then, you have to be more mindful. And if you do it a second time, that's on you, pal. I mean, there's not going to be any, woe is me. But if it is questionable, then you can't appeal it. So I think they've covered this from pretty much every base. And if you've done it 3 times, and like I said, you're headhunting. So that's going to be entirely on you. I think this is a good change.
I love it. I always thought it was so simple. It's like they overreact. They go from one pendulum to the other. If you have a targeting call, it's 15. If you get a second one, bye. If you get a third one, then you got a problem. And they do say that the percentages of targeting calls have dropped dramatically, so people and players are learning that as they grow up through various levels until they get to college football.
So do you have the other rules, or do you like me to run those down real quick?
You touch on a couple other ones that would make
well, they all
a difference.
are relevant. Fair catch kicks, under another rule approved yesterday, oversight committee, teams can choose to attempt a kick after a completed or awarded fair catch. That kick will be a field goal
like the
place
NFL.
kick
Yeah.
with a holder, no tee, or a drop kick from the spot where the returner caught the ball. If it goes through the uprights, that's 3 points, and the defense is required to be at least 10 yards from the spot of the kick. This takes D1 closer to NFL and high school football.
Yeah, Brandon Aubrey and the guy from Houston and a couple other guys, you would think that they should have already done that.
Well, and look, in college, it doesn't happen. I think a lot of times it doesn't happen in the pros because now you're not going to punt it if the ball's going to land at the 50.
Right.
Like if you're going to be able to get a fair kick at the 50, that you're not going to do that late in the game and give one of those NFL kickers Cam Little or Brandon Aubrey or whoever a chance to just boom one with no rush. I mean, with no rush.
No pressure at all.
Yeah, at that. So that would be ridiculous. And the same thing in college. Look, I've seen kickers, kick it through the uprights on multiple kickoffs. There's no rush in their face. If you've got the wind at your back in a college stadium and you're at the, your own at midfield and you don't have anybody coming at you, why not do it? And that happens way more in college where at the end of the game, you're trying to run out the clock. You can't, you're at the 17-yard line. You can't. The college punter, shanks a kick or whatever, and you get a short field. Yeah, run out there and kick it.
I can't remember what game it was, but it was an NFL game where a team had a chance and the attempt for the field goal fell just short. That would have won the game. Obviously, there wasn't much time left, and they went ahead and said, oh, look, we're going to kick it right here.
Other rule changes approved on punts where jersey number exceptions, so players who don't wear 50 through 79 are used the snapper and 2 adjacent linemen on either side who are lined up, or now this gets into just nerdy verbiage, are lined up or touching the tackle box are ineligible receivers by position and become exceptions to the numbering rule when the snapper takes his position. This clarifies which players are eligible in the formation. So I guess just clearing up some things there. It got into some of the unsportsmanlike penalties and the guidance of how to do those as well. Officials will focus on unsportsmanlike conduct where a player taunts an opponent, actions that interfere with game administration, and celebrations found demeaning to the game or opponent. And then 2 more offensive pass interference penalties will be 10 yards as where they were previously 15. And then finally, good news for Tate Sandell and all the booty shorts wearers because they can continue wearing their booty shorts as they did not approve a proposal to require players to wear leg coverings from the top of their shoes to the bottom of their pants. And I wouldn't have been for leg coverings fully, but just like I remember in high school or middle school, the teacher would have the ruler, and I don't know if they do this anywhere anymore. I guess probably like private schools they do, where you place it by the knee and how many inches it is.
Private schools, they hit you in the knuckles. But
I mean, you'd need like a couple rulers for Tate Sandell to measure how high up his tie it is.
Leggings can do that in the NFL because it all has to be the same.
But they're not doing it regardless, so there's not going to be a leggings rule, so he can rejoice amongst others.
Let me tell you what my school had, because we had in elementary and middle school, we had uniforms. But when I got to high school, it was a dress code. And so girls' skirts, had to be like no more than like an inch above the knee. But they did, and this congrats to them in the 80s and 90s, figured out that sometimes putting a ruler straight up and down on a girl's leg in front of everybody is maybe a little bit inappropriate. So you're measuring that out. So what they had was the shop teacher, Coach Gill, created this device that was every teacher had one. They made it in the wood shop, and it had 2 dowel rods that were like this, and that was the length that they made it. So the teachers just go up and they would say, hey, I got to check your dress code, and if you were in the dowel rods, you're fine. If you're above the dowel rods, you're in trouble. You got a dress code referral.
This day and age, you're going to jail. You do that. And then this note, the Army-Navy game, which is getting less and less like it's getting squeezed because of the college football playoff. President Trump with an executive order to protect the time period around that game. The policy of the United States that no college football games, specifically college football's playoff games, or other postseason games be broadcast in a manner that directly conflicts with the Army-Navy game. Now, there really hasn't been one. I think there might be an FCS game or two, but they can get around this. And President Trump also today invited the midshipman football team was on campus at the White House because of the Commander-in-Chief trophy that was presented to the team today.
I'm not sure how necessary this was, because I do think that in spite of everything we say about the ruthlessness of the TV networks, they were going to respect this window, but I do think that maybe sometimes maybe you codify something so that they don't, and that gives them another bureaucratic headache if they tried to. But yeah, I mean, I think it should be its own thing. It's got to continue to be a special
this
thing.
This is being proactive,
So,
just in case.
Yeah, I don't like. I think that they were going to respect that anyway. I think the leaders of college football see that as sacrosanct. Now, what they are going to encroach on is it's not going to be the only game of the day anymore. It can't be because of the expansion of the college.
It's at bowl games recently.
Yeah, so like it's not going to be the only game of the day anymore. But as long as they leave 2:00, I guess it would be like 3:00 Eastern time open, I think everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, I don't think that this was necessarily like a need to do today, but it does protect anything that may go sideways in the future as far as a network getting a bug to go and play something opposite it. So, yeah, this ensures that doesn't happen. Not that it's really happened yet, but you go ahead and just ensure that it never does. So that's basically what this will do, and really it's less about some random-ass bowl game that might be played on the same day. Or like I think the idea of it should be the only game on a day is ridiculous. Like I think, yeah, sure, give them their own TV spot, but I don't think we need to carve out the entire 24 hours to ensure that nothing else takes place but Army-Navy. I think that's against the spirit of the sport anyways. But, yeah, this is not that. This is to protect a time slot, and I do think it makes sense from the standpoint of just in general it does, because you want to preserve it, but you didn't necessarily have to because nothing's really touched it. But we do know how TV networks are, and most importantly, there was undoubtedly going to be some rubbing with that time spot if the playoff expands, which we know that it will. And so really that's what this curtails is we know the playoff's going to expand. We know that if it does, then it's going to start earlier. We know that if it starts earlier, then it's probably starting some games on Army-Navy weekend, and we're going to need to play some games on that Saturday. So if we do, we're just not going to play them the same time as Army-Navy. That's basically what this does.
Play them at 11 and then play games at like 6 or 7. Army-Navy usually is like a 2 o'clock or so kickoff. So there's that just to kind of just in case people do lose sight of it, they will have their – not exclusivity, but during that time period.
Well, the other thing that's going to happen eventually, I do think that the wiser minds will prevail, and they'll move this calendar up enough so we're not almost to February 1st playing college football games, which would affect it as well, because then you're talking about maybe some even more crucial playoff games that would be played on that weekend.
Yeah, and even Army, remember, their coach, Monken, said that he wouldn't be against moving it up a week. But still, they want that time period to be theirs. 2 more quick football notes. I want to get to the basketball and what's happened today, some things happened yesterday. Zach Barnett will join us today at 3:30. Austin Simmons, the Ole Miss quarterback who transferred to Missouri, has been named QB1, as they are, of course, and so many others either have just finished up or about to start as far as spring football. Austin Simmons is their starter at this particular time.
I was not completely surprised by this, but a little bit surprised considering that Matt Zollers, who is a 5-star recruit that they signed or high 4-star recruit a couple years ago and played a little bit last year, I thought this might go on a little bit longer. But for them to be able to say it here on March 20th, Austin Simmons has got the reins of that starting job. I think it's going to be interesting to see. He won the starting job at Ole Miss last year. Trinidad Chambliss was Wally pipping him. So now that he's at Mizzou, it stands to reason he'd be the starter. I just thought this might be drawn out a little bit longer.
If you know who the guy is, you go with him.
Yeah.
And, I guess they just felt like he was clearly the choice. And, I mean, given his status and his ranking and the I guess, kind of talk surrounding him, he's not a guy transferring to not be the starter somewhere. So you still have to go out and earn it, and apparently he did that during spring ball. So a guy who I'm excited to see more of. They've got some big-time opponents that he's going to be taking on. And looking forward to seeing what he can do, because last year had to be a bit of a weird, like just a weird situation to be a part of, being the starter, and all of a sudden you get Wally pipped, and here's this guy who takes the Rebs all the way to the playoff, and then somehow gets this other year, and there's a coaching change, and so he leaves to Missouri, and I think he'll be a really interesting pickup and guy to follow next year.
We got one note about Utah and Kyle Whittingham, who's now the head coach at Michigan. This came out earlier today. Mark Harlan, the AD at Utah, there was an agreement on Whittingham leaving and was going to get paid a nice sum of money. But part of the agreement, according to the letters, and if you look at the fine print, was that Whittingham was going to make the transition very simple, was going to pretty much like leave the Utah football program alone. And, of course, he's now at Michigan and took a half a dozen of the assistant coaches with him. This is the letter from Mark Harlan to Whittingham saying, there's going to be a check. As you know, the university was disappointed by your actions last month. The university felt that your involvement with recruiting our football coaches and staff to Michigan was contrary to the terms of your employment agreement, which requires you to assist with a smooth and successful transition of football program and to the new coach, which of course is Scally and his coaching staff. So he's going to get his money. They're not going to fight this. Utah's not going to try to keep money behind. I think this first check was like $8 million, but there's still there's some hard feelings there.
Well, maybe if you wanted it to be smooth, you shouldn't have run him out.
There was an offer for him to stay and a number for his contract.
Yeah, but I mean, people kind of feel it when you're being pushed out.
Sure.
I think coaches feel it when they're being pushed out, and it seems to me like he felt it, and then he went. They didn't want him to be the coach there anymore. He didn't want to be the coach anymore. They let him go. That's pretty ambiguous language. I mean, yes, they're mad because he took some coaches with him, but that's what happens. That's just what happens. So sorry you made it harder, but you also didn't really want him to be there enough to where you kind of met him where you wanted to financially. So he went to Michigan. He took coaches with him. I don't really see what the issue is here.
All I know is that Mark Harlan's always in some stupid story every 6 months or so that does not make him or Utah look in the best of light. Now, they attempted to keep him on. It looked like he was actually going to remain coach, and I think it's important to note that they were going to continue this on. This wasn't forcing him out like it appeared that it was. We weren't privy to all of the behind the scenes, but that's certainly what it looked like from the outside looking in. Certainly the last couple of years, it's felt like there's been a pressure on him to, don't you want to retire, coach, right?
Yeah.
You're old, right? You want to retire, right? Like, you're going to retire soon, right? Like, that's just questions everywhere. And clearly he's not ready to retire, clearly, given the step up in status as far as jobs go. But, yeah, they had agreed to keep working together. And then in the following weeks, according to this report, emails between Whittingham's agent and the school administrators showed stark differences in any new terms. Tollner requested $1.6 million increase in salary, which would have put him up to $9 million, a $20 million figure for NIL, an increase of $2 million in his staff salary pool. 3 days later, school sends his agent their final offer, 1-year deal, salary of $8 million, which is less, and if he were to agree to cede several aspects of the program to Scally. For example, Scally would have full and final oversight and decision-making in the areas of football recruiting, personnel staffing, the GM position, and have complete decision-making authority over any football recruiting, roster, and staffing impacting the program beyond 2026. This is just a sliver of the article. So, yeah, this is a bit deeper than just I want this. No. Okay, bye. But, yeah, this went back and forth, and they're basically telling him, we'll allow you to stay, but we're not giving you everything that you want, and you're going to be head coach in name only, basically, because we're giving all your major responsibilities to Morgan Scally. So you can see where Whittingham's F you, dude.
Well,
I'm
just
not doing
make him
this.
the coach then.
Then just be the coach. And so, yeah, so then he leaves, and they have their separation agreement, which now they're fighting over. But he got that first check. He got the first separation check for $8 million.
Yeah, no, he got it. He got paid. He got paid. But you wonder if that could have been a little bit
they didn't want to go
smoother.
They didn't want to go through the legal part of it. That's why they went ahead and paid that. But
I think Harlan just wanted to put it in a letter.
The $4 million, which is the second payment's next January. Third payment, $1.5 million, is due in January of 2028. So he still has a couple of payments, but those are pursuant to the ongoing terms, which now they're disagreeing on, right? So we'll see. But he got that first big chunk payment, and it says, based on the language in the separation agreement, administrators seem to understand that Whittingham would pursue other coaching opportunities. Interesting, as part of the agreement, Whittingham's prohibited from accepting a coaching job within the state of Utah. So they were trying to make sure he didn't go to BYU
or Utah State
before January of 2028. There was that date attached to it. So, yeah, this is actually really interesting. You can unpack a lot of it.
Yeah, but the bottom line is he's gone. He took guys with him, and he still got paid. And there's not much Utah could do about it, and they're not. As they say, they just want to, in the best interest of them, to just move on. All right, games going on right now. Iowa State blowing out Tennessee State. Alabama has a 2-point lead at halftime against Hofstra. And then Utah State, speaking to them, and Villanova, they just tipped off. Earlier today, and then I want to also get into some of the uniqueness of last night. Virginia was struggling, but put away Wright State by 9. Arizona blows out Long Island. Texas Tech shoots the ball crazy good. 91-71 over an Akron team that can be a little bit dangerous. And Kentucky hits a 3-point shot near midcourt, forces overtime, and then beats Santa Clara by 5. 89-84.
One note on the Iowa State game real quick is that Joshua Jefferson's left the game, or he left the game earlier, and they just announced he will not be back. So
he is on crutches currently.
Yeah, he's not able to walk on his own power. So the latest update I saw was he's not returned from the halftime locker room. So unless he's walked out or something like that, and people have seen that, but that's the last update I saw outside of he was having a hard time getting around. So I saw a couple of Iowa State reactions of, like, you just feel like just the pale of, like, sadness over the arena with that injury, and obviously that'd be pretty major. So, yeah, that's something of note from the Iowa State game, which is ongoing.
Absolutely. And, again, injuries that have affected the tournament. And Iowa State's already battled through quite a bit of them already. There are Cinderellas still. This is before this morning. No upsets this morning. There might be some, of course, the rest of the day. Amanda Kristovich, Cinderellas, guys, not dead. The portal, the NIL, was going to kill Cinderellas. That's what the writers, the analysts, the analytics said. High Point said not so fast with a huge win last night and beating Wisconsin. Yesterday evening, actually, beating number 5 Wisconsin. You had VCU with an amazing comeback to beat North Carolina in what was a blue blood going down.
I was watching the Kentucky game today and thinking the same thing I was thinking during the North Carolina game last night, in that Hubert Davis and Mark Pope are about to be in the same boat. Now, Mark Pope, again, lives to see another day, but there's a lot of money being spent on those rosters, and Hubert Davis has been there a lot longer than Mark Pope, and he might have the out with Caleb Wilson not being there, and that's a huge thing for them. But they were up by a bunch,
16, I think,
and then they hit the 19, and they hit the wall. And VCU just kept charging back. But that overtime was abysmal for both teams, because they were absolutely gassed, because UNC had been gassed from about the 10-minute mark in the second half. And then VCU finally came all the way back, and the game is tied. But then when overtime started, you could tell the way the shots were going that, whatever energy you could muster into your hands to get that shot up and make it right was everything that they had. So both teams absolutely left it all out there on the floor. But Hubert Davis is going to be under the microscope.
Craig, you will respond on just from last night, and I want to get to some of the stats, et cetera, of what all of that might have meant.
Well, it was interesting to see St. Louis just crush Georgia. I mean, crush Georgia.
I'll have a note about that too, yeah.
Texas A&M, Texas, good nights for the Texas schools. Sorry to see BYU season come to a close. AJ Debonsa, I want to say it properly. Debonsa, for his BYU career to end with that NCAA tournament win is a bummer. I know he said he's got a decision to make. Pal, there is no decision to make. I don't care if you put it on mom to make the decision. The money, as good as it is in college basketball, is not NBA money, and it's nowhere close.
Not where he's getting drafted. Yeah.
No, there's nowhere close. So in football, you can do like the whole, the first-round pick only makes this. In football, that's a lot closer to an actual debate. In basketball, it's not. BYU would have to pay him like $20 million next year to come back. So I think that's a foregone conclusion that he is gone, and I think BYU has always expected that. But that was tough to watch them lose. And I told y'all, like, I'm not Mr. Basketball, but Texas in that play-in game, I said if they get going, man, they could be dangerous. Here they are. They're 2 games in, and
Jay Billis had them going to the Sweet 16.
What I say, when you have a stud, they've got a stud, Tremont Mark.
No, they've got some dudes that can get explosive. Here are a couple of nuggets from so as of when everyone went to bed last night, out of 26 million brackets, just 10,700 remain perfect. Now, that has probably changed a little bit. There's Winnie the Pooh. 10,700 brackets which is 0.02% of the brackets are perfect. Let's go to the number about UT. You guys mentioned it. Craig, you said it. They got hot, and they got the star and Mark, among others. And the big white kid, he was fantastic last night. 13th time in 15 years. A first four team has gone into the round of 32. 13 official. You're going to play in that game. You're going to win a game. You're going to get blown out. That's going to happen most of the time. But 13 of 15 years, Texas keeps that streak or that trend going alive after playing in Dayton.
I will tell you, there's an era of basketball where Howard probably would have kept that game close the whole time. Maybe not now where Michigan's got all these, highly paid studs, but Howard, who played the other night also, came out pretty hot. And Michigan, Michigan went to halftime going, hey guys, let's focus. And then stretched out from it. But yeah, Texas, I think underperformed all year long. And
well, they had big wins, but they messed with their food with some bad losses and slipped in at the very end.
So yeah, the total, resume for Texas was kind of underperforming. They had some bright spots, but they underperformed all year long. But again, as long as you're in the thing and you're playing a game, your chance to underperform, overperform, perform exactly how you are is as good as that day.
The 18-14 record doesn't even affect them anymore.
No.
They've won 2 in a row. They're in the round of 32. They're playing with confidence, beat BYU, who was higher ranked by far with the number 6 seed.
Modest Vocatitis is who you're talking about.
Thank you.
AKA the big white kid. Yeah, Modest Vocatitis, I believe is who you're referring to.
He was huge for UT. Dominated the boards, made some shots, probably played one of his better games and was huge in that game. Also, Kelvin Sampson, this is kind of a cute little note. So after the game, in the post-game podium, players get up on the podium, the coach is there. Usually there's 1, 2, or 3 players. Here is the video as Houston's Kingston Fleming and his teammate are walking away. Here we go.
Front row.
Do we leave?
Yeah. Thank you.
We can take those or not?
Not yet. Saturday.
Freshman. Such a freshman move. Jesus.
Sampson.
And then later
Here on
on,
the front row.
Sampson then says,
Thank you.
kid's going to be a top 10 pick. He's so naive. But that's part of what makes Kingston so special.
That video's still looping there, Rez.
All right, so that's Kelvin Sampson had fun with it. I love the innocence of that and what, of course, has become such a professional level at college basketball.
Yeah, that was another impressive game. Houston just started out like a house on fire. I'm really looking forward to seeing them and A&M play on Saturday night because A&M just runs so fast, but Houston is so physical, and it feels like they can adapt to whatever you're trying to do to them. I don't think Kelvin Sampson's afraid of Bucky Ball. I'm sure he's excited to coach against it. But, yeah, they looked – Kingston Fleming's in particular, the first, 12 minutes of that game, I thought they were about to put a blindfold on him and just see if he could do it through Zen. He was so good.
Craig, comment on Houston, and we'll save some of this other basketball, some of this other nuggets for later on in the show.
Yeah, no, good to see Houston get the win. I think they're a team that you still expect to make a deep run. That's a really nice start for them, and Kingston Flemings can take them a long way when he's playing at his best. He's a really fun, special player, and like you said, a cute moment there, not knowing any better. That I know you need to win. You need to play another game because even if you lose the next game, you can still technically take your nameplate with you. But just kind of a fun moment there, and little to no trouble with the Vandals. Didn't expect Houston would have much of an issue in the first round. They didn't. So now looking forward to Texas A&M. That ought to be a hell of a game. That ought to be a hell of a crowd. That ought to be just great basketball. And I think Texas A&M, if you're following the SEC, it's not surprising that they've been a really good team. And was it Buckyball? I guess as it's known. And I've just seen little bits and pieces here because I don't follow it super closely. But it's just like they're getting hot, or they're having this, or they're like just little moments of
first year there
positivity, and like this is looking kind of good, and this could be a something. And so now they've got a great opportunity against an in-state unofficial rival of sorts, and there's bad blood because they absolutely look down on Houston, and there's a ton of Aggies in Houston, and Houston knows they get looked down on, and there's a ton of Cougars that come across Aggies all the time. So I think that'll be very, very spirited and a lot of fun, and good to see Houston move on. I do want to make mention real quick, though. I did see this coming across. Joshua Jefferson's in a boot, so that's pretty notable. That's one of the best players in this whole go-round for the Big 12 and certainly for Iowa State. So that's
one of your Final Four
notable. One of the notable injuries early on here, but just saw that updated the last couple of minutes that he's in a boot.
Real quick observation on A&M and St. Mary's. Every tournament, there's one game in particular where they put teams of contrasting styles that are so different against each other, and one of those coaches was like, of all the 10 seeds we could have gotten, it's this one. And I thought that the minute I saw A&M and St. Mary's, because Randy Bennett muscles you up, slows down and all that. And A&M, if they just run so much, if they get going early, St. Mary's can't ever play their game.
St. Mary's is a basketball school, obviously, like Creighton and some others, but they haven't done anything in a long time. They really haven't done much in the NCAA tournament in a long time, but that can be a bad draw. Texas Tech hits 11 threes earlier today. Petty had 24. Anderson played great, 18. Off the bench, Mosley had 16. And 14-15 from Atwell and Watts as they win big, 91-71, and separated with a big run in the second half, midway through the second half to blow that game open. So they're on their way into the second round. When we come back, Zach Barnett, footballscoop.com. We've got more, a little nugget or four about High Point with that huge win last night. This is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, LowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be. Have you lately found yourself, you just don't have as much pizzazz. You don't have energy. You're just lethargic. That could be a lot of things. Maybe you're not getting enough sleep, or maybe could be some bad habits, or it could be your T level. Your testosterone level is dropping as we speak. And so Dr. Petty could find out if that's the reason. How do you contact him? PettyClinicLowT.com. Tell him I sent you. Tell him what's going on with you. And it might be your sex drive or your sleep habits, whatever. And so they will set you up to get blood work, take care of that appointment, get the blood work results, look at your T level, and if it's dropped or it's too low, give you an option to be in a program that will increase your testosterone levels so you can become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, used to be. Why not feel better at PettyClinicLowT.com?
That's my go-to guy. Can you fix my smartphone?
Yes.
Do you have car batteries?
Yeah.
What about golf cart batteries?
Of course.
Battery from a G-Fob?
Absolutely.
My boat?
Huge variety.
Toy boat?
Sure.
Motorcycles?
You bet.
My apartment building?
Whole building.
Do you have batteries for my party lights?
Yeah.
Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
When you play hard, sometimes you fall hard. Sports injuries require special treatment. At Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, our team of expert doctors provides athletes and active adults with comprehensive sports medicine care, diagnostics. Whether you're in high school, college, or beyond, we'll help you get back on the field. Call call on the team physicians for Baylor Athletics. Call Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
You got batteries for my side-by-side?
Yes.
Replace my flashlight?
Sure thing. What about my business?
Oh, good one.
100%. Batteries for my fleet of trucks?
Cat floor scrubbers?
Yes, and fire panels. We have pallets of batteries.
Well, what about...
As your go-to guy, if it needs a battery, we have it.
Well, that's all you had to say.
Could have led with that.
Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
This 3 o'clock hour is brought to you by QC Kinetics. Feel better, move better, live better with regenerative medicine using your body's own healing abilities for natural pain relief. No surgery, no drugs, no downtime. With locations in Dallas and Houston at QCkinetics.com. Now it's time for 365 Sports.
QC Kinetics has obviously helped me out. I've discussed that. I love discussing what they do. QC Kinetics in Houston and also Dallas. We're now joined by Zach Barnett, footballscoop.com. Zach, there's rules that have been either changed or pretty much remain the same, a couple more important than others. Your thoughts about, and then the Army-Navy game will stay in its own spot. But what is your thought? What has always been your thought about how they handle targeting?
I'm with just about everyone else that I hate that you can commit the same penalty on the final play of the first half and all you do is miss the remainder of the game. But if you commit the exact same penalty on the first play of the second half, you've effectively missed a whole ball game and your absence greatly affected across 2 games. So I'm glad everyone, I was in the chorus asking for red card, yellow card. Which I understand why they're not doing that because they don't. It's a slippery slope for officials to judge intent. So moving to this sliding scale system, I think makes a whole lot of sense. Whereas if you can commit the penalty on the final play of overtime, and if it's your first offense, you're kicked out of that game. If that's all you miss, your second offense though would be more punitive because you'd have to miss the first half of the next game. Even if that's the first play of the game, you're now missing a game and a half. And if it's your third penalty and you commit targeting on the very first play of the game, you're now missing the rest of that game and the rest of the next game. So I understand the logic to it. The NCAA noted that they didn't have a single player in college football last season commit 3 targeting fouls. So hopefully that does not happen. But overall, I thought it was a good change.
Zach, the fair catch rule that they've adopted from the NFL where you can fair catch it and have the free kick. We never see it happen in the NFL. We rarely see it happen. But do you think, given the nature of college punters and kickers, we might see it a couple times in college, especially if you're punting at the end of a game, say from your own 10-yard line, and somebody might do it?
I wouldn't be surprised given that there's many more college football games per season than NFL games, and the variance of what we see in college football doesn't often show up on Sundays. It's part of why we love this sport. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. I didn't know that the rules prevented you from doing this in the first place. Like if last season, if I fair caught a kick or a punt, what's stopping me from attempting a field goal or a drop kick previously? I understand now that you have to be at least 10 yards away, so I guess you can't rush. I guess that's the difference here is where you can't rush like it's a traditional field goal. But I'm not an expert on this area of football law, I'll admit.
Yeah, that was one where I was just like, okay, well, that's of note, but was not as much interest to me as the targeting or the booty shorts rule, where Tate Sandell can rest assured he can still wear his shorter pants, but that also not going to be penalized. So, yeah, cool to see some of those. Now, I think the thing that I read was most interesting today was this kind of unveiling of information on the end of the Kyle Whittingham era there at Utah, and part of what led to him not sticking around but instead heading to Michigan, and now Utah saying, hey, you're violating the terms of our agreement, our separation agreement. It sure seems like if he had stayed at Utah, he would have been head coach and almost like name only, Zach, because so much of the responsibilities of the head coach were going to be given to Morgan Scalley. I was just curious, like, how much of this were you aware of kind of when this was ongoing, and what are your thoughts on maybe just some of this information coming to light, and just what do you think this looks like on the other side, Scalley at Utah and Whittingham at Michigan?
Yeah, I mean, Utah is obviously quite confident in Morgan Scalley's coaching abilities because they named him head coach in waiting towards the end of the previous decade and then took that away from him when he had some racially charged text pop up. I'm sure you can Google it if you're interested. So they took the head coach in waiting away, let everything die down, and then handed it back to him during the 2023 season. That wasn't publicized until the summer of 2024, but that actually went down in 2023. So you had the entire 24 season, the entire 25 season. And as we've seen, those types of arrangements were popular at the end of the aughts, and then they didn't quite work out the way everyone intended. They seem to have expiration dates that if you name a guy head coach in waiting, he pretty much needs to be the head coach within 24 months or he gets antsy and moves on. So Utah had to make a choice, and they bet on Morgan Scalley, which they're obviously quite impressed with his coaching ability, his ability to lead the program, and he's 20 years younger than Kyle Whittingham. So you understand why. So they weren't outright firing Kyle Whittingham. Utah went 10-2 in the regular season last year, but they were giving him a raise that was $1 million less than what he asked for. And then most notably, as you alluded to, Craig, he was going to have less responsibility than he'd had previously. Morgan Scalley would have had all the power to make roster decisions for anything from 2027 and beyond. And if Kyle Whittingham wanted to make hires, he'd have to run those by the AD, whereas he didn't have to previously, which you think the AD probably would have then held a separate meeting with Morgan Scalley saying, are you okay with hiring this guy? They weren't going to ask Kyle Whittingham to make him get the permission of his inferior to do that. So they're going to add a step between that. And then most insultingly, they were going to basically hire a full-time babysitter to be the eyes and ears of the athletic director to sit in the football offices on a full-time basis just to monitor things. So Kyle Whittingham got the hint and left and then took the Michigan job. The Michigan job was open at the time this all went down, but he didn't get the job till 2 weeks later. So by the letter of the law, Utah found that the only way they could sue Kyle Whittingham for breach of contract if he was out there violating his non-disparagement agreement, which he was not doing. He was just hiring all of Utah's people and taking some of their players. So they just decided, you know what, we don't want to get into a standoff with our winningest coach that we've ever had in a standoff that we're probably going to lose. Let's just pay the man his money and move on.
Who of these three head coaches that are new in the Big 12 will have the biggest or maybe most immediate impact, Klein, Rogers, or Scalley?
That's a good question. The deck is packed in favor of Scalley simply because he's already there.
Yeah.
Rogers has probably the toughest job. It seems like everyone, including the janitor, left for Iowa State for Penn State. So that's probably the least confident I am in moving forward. And then Colin Klein somewhere in the middle. That Kansas State program had gotten stale, so they needed a facelift. So I'm not going to predict any of those teams to seriously contend for Arlington, but of the three, I'd go Utah.
Which team do you think has made the best assistant coach hire of this offseason?
That's a good question. Are we talking all of college football?
Yeah. Just which one jumps out at you the most of this coordinator is really going to help them take the jump?
I really, really, really like both hires that Florida's made. I think Florida is a program that's going to level up pretty quickly under John Summerall. Getting Buster Faulkner to be the offensive coordinator, bringing Brad White in, the defensive coordinator from Kentucky. Of the two, I'd go Faulkner. I absolutely loved what he did with Haynes King at Georgia Tech, and then bringing Aaron Philo, the backup quarterback. He hasn't played a whole lot, Philo obviously being behind Haynes King, but Buster Faulkner saw him every day and had the opportunity to cut bait and say, we're going to go in a different direction, but then brought him in with. So that's a pretty strong endorsement of them. And I think Florida is one of those where if I'm the father of a 5-star recruit, which unfortunately I'm not, but if I was, Florida would be one of those 5 initial visits I want to take just to see what they've got going on there.
We always talk about the players that missed out on NIL, the parents of the players that missed out on NIL. I think they're probably as upset as well as anybody else, thinking back in hindsight. Zach, spring football is not at all what it used to be 5, especially 10 or 15, 20 years ago. I'm not sure how closely you followed it to begin with, but where is your interest level in comparison to where it was previously when it comes to just the activity during spring? And what are your thoughts on it moving forward, if you have any, on what would be the best way to, or the best path forward?
Well, I guess I don't think spring football should exist, so that should tell you where the emphasis I place on it. I do understand, obviously, why coaches are into it, but I think spring football is the source of a lot of the main source of all the calendar problems we have in college football. So if I had power to rewrite the calendar from January 1st to December 31st, spring football would not exist in its current form. That said, I understand why it exists. I do not follow it on a daily basis. It's also less important now than it used to be because coaches have much more freedom to meet with their players both on the field and in the meeting room throughout the summer. So it's not like this is the be-all, end-all that it was even 15 years ago. So I monitor it at a distance. I'm much, much more interested in say, basketball, even though that's a hobby rather than a professional job for me, than I am in spring football in March.
How much of Will Muschamp is aggressive, in your face? That's what he's done. He's been good, not everywhere, but he's been good. How much of a jolt will that be? Because Kwiatkowski was pretty damn good for UT. Maybe not at times last year, but what do you think that'll be for them, for Texas?
I think they'll gain a lot from it. You had a Texas team that was more talented than almost every single team that they played. But when the weaknesses they had is they too often just sit back on 3rd and 5, 3rd and 9, and playoff coverage. I've got the UPS guy right there if you hear that. Hold on just a second, sir.
No, take
So we may need to wrap this up, unfortunately. But I think your Texas team that was more talented than almost every single team they played would far too often on 3rd down play passively. That's not going to happen. You're going to see a lot more man coverage. Probably Muschamp prefers to rush 4 and play man behind it. I think that's going to be their base. And that's also the dispositional hire that Sark made at running back, bringing in Jabbar Jalouk. It's going to be a lot more physically aggressive, in-your-face football than you saw previously.
Yeah, and then, of course, Sark could get a little bit of, not flack, but the expectations are high. Bring in a guy like that gets the fan base going. Thank you very much, Zach. And great news, by the way, 1 weekend with your wife in the hospital in Dallas, as that continues to go well?
Yeah. I hope no one in your audience ever has to use this advice, but if you are in this position, I cannot recommend the folks at Baylor in Dallas enough. It's been a great week for her. Thank you for asking.
Good. That's great. Our audience absolutely wants to know. Thank you for your time. Have a great weekend, Zach Barnett, FootballScoop.com. We're going to get into some of the coordinator changes with some of the schools at 4:25 or so. Anything from what he said or anything else you guys want to add here before we close out this 3 o'clock hour?
Well, I was going to ask him who he picked for his Final Four, but he kind of left it on a personal note that I didn't want to follow up with.
Well,
oh, yeah, okay, great, your wife.
Plus, he had to go get the UPS. So.
Yeah, but who's your national champion? It's like, didn't feel like that was important to squeeze in there at the end. Man, as far as what we talked about there, Paul did throw him a pretty wide open question about the coordinators because, man, there's so many changes. Like, even asking that about a head coaching job, and there's like 50 of those changes, much less the coordinators, which is probably in the hundreds. There's been a lot we're going to have to like remember and digest ahead of next year.
He's one of the only people I would actually ask that question to.
I don't know. I'd have to sit and think about it.
Because, I mean, that's what they do. Like, so anybody from Football Scoop, I would ask that.
Yeah, of
because
course.
like he can think about it in the way where it just kind of cycles through his mind like Neo in the Matrix. So
but it's just funny hearing that question of like, it's not an A, B, C, D option. It's A through Z times 5 times 5 because there's just so much movement going on. But I think this the complete hands in the air, the white flag being waved around spring football it's just across the board. Like nobody is even pretending to be even a little bit excited about it. Now I'm excited. Not for spring football specifically, but that it provides a window for at least there to be some news of interest to learn about, hey, Micah Hudson's now doing this or that. We wouldn't have known that necessarily.
Austin Simmons is QB1.
Or Austin Simmons is QB1. So I do think there are things, even if those are obvious, that are of interest that come out this time of year that maybe don't otherwise. I don't know. Yeah, but as far as like the practices themselves, those don't have nearly as much meaning as they used to. And I do think that he's right as far as that creating as much of a kind of a situation in the calendar as anything else. So really interested in how they do this moving forward. I mean, the word or the phrase OTAs gets thrown around a lot now.
Yeah, you get that, and then you get the workouts that they want to shove some of that into the summer.
And it just sounds like that's what everybody kind of wants at this point. So wouldn't be surprised if that's where we are pretty soon. But, yeah, I mean, I like it just as a backdrop. It's not like it's the forefront by any means. And at the same time, like, if there's football to be given, then give me some football, even if it's not the most important thing in the world.
I would I think one of the things you can get out of this maybe more, the thing that would make me appreciate it is news that is finite or like definite, other than like, everybody looked good, I'm real proud of our guys. Okay, yeah, I hope so. Austin Simmons is QB1. This guy got hurt. Those are the things that inform me much more than like, man, we've had a really great week of practice. Yeah, okay, good.
Beat writers who cover a specific team and like for whatever mode of media they're in, yeah, they gotta that this is their time to get a lot, plus also save some back for stories and stuff that they have. We had Aranda on yesterday. We have other coaches throughout the next 3 to 4 weeks, but I'm not going out to practice to see who's the backup center or things like that. I might go watch 1 or 2 just to get some sun.
Yeah, I will go out there probably for 1 or 2 of them, but 5-10 years ago I would have gone to every single one of them. I mean, that's the difference is I would have gone to every single one of them. I would have sat around for an hour and a half after they ended waiting for the media session to start, and finally I just was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Careers changed and things like that, but there was a time where spring ball was, hey, spring ball's here.
Yep.
Now it also had to do with, for a lot of that, you had a red hot program that was of high national interest and had a lot of interaction. So whether it was Baylor, not RG3 because I wasn't here for him, but Baylor in that run 2013-14, I mean, they were as hot of a program as anybody in America. So everything was of interest. And that was also pre-NIL and all of that, which has definitely had an impact on spring ball. And then even when Matt Rule came around, like that was still pre-NIL. So I really do think that like NIL's killed spring football in so many ways.
Yeah, you got how many players out there, and you still don't know if you're going to be able to retain most.
Because when I think about like when it started to matter a lot less, it is like the last couple of years really is where it's felt like it's gone from like slowly losing importance to now it's just sort of there for a lot of people outside of the beat writers.
Zach Barnett, Craig, Duke, Florida, Arizona, Michigan. How boring is that? And he even said that. He goes,
so
it's
he's
boring.
Like everybody in America,
Duke,
basically.
Florida, Arizona, and Michigan. An update on the games that are in the afternoon section of the early part of the day. Iowa State's up 35, but again, all of the focus on Jefferson and the walking boot. They're blowing out Tennessee State. Alabama up 10 on Hofstra, 10 minutes left. Tennessee up 6 on Miami of Ohio. That game is early, first half, in 31-28. Utah State leads Villanova, and that game's got 5 minutes left in the first half. Again, winners earlier today. Arizona, Texas Tech, both from the Big 12. Kentucky and Virginia both win, and Kentucky hit a half-court shot to force overtime.
Kentucky may have gotten a break from the officiating, not intentionally, but opposing coach, whose name's now escaping me, tried calling timeout and wasn't awarded a timeout. Yeah. And there's a little bit of a controversy about that. And still, whatever happened, and Kentucky gets the win, and Mark Pope better be thanking his lucky stars because he was already on some ice that was starting to melt a little bit and getting thinner. And
not as thin as it is.
A loss today would have been, oof.
What's North Carolina?
Hubert Davis.
Yeah, I'm surprised he still has a job. Because that's one of those places that will cut you quickly.
Would you be surprised if Monday we heard he didn't?
Oh, no, I think that's happening.
I mean, it's just.
Well, he's been there for a good long
he's
probably like a handful of years.
Now, that's twice now.
But
this is back-to-back years this has happened.
Well, and the thing is, last year they gave him that gigantic extension in January or whatever, like right in the middle of the season. And it's like, well, he's not going to get fired now. They just gave him the extension, and if he hadn't done that thing where you don't sign it right away, I'm pretty sure his agent called him and like, you guys have lost 6 games in a row. You better get your pen out right now and sign that sucker.
Sign it to me, co-sign it,
you know what?
Notarized.
I don't know what Doug actually did when all was said and done, but they could have gone and saved a lot of money in coaches' bad contracts. If they were able to go in there and go like, this in hindsight was a bad idea.
They rushed to it. Okay, what would he have left? They had not given him an extension? No, he said his alma mater. All right, when we come back, Kevin Flaherty with his thoughts about the tournament. We'll bring up some of what happened last night and what's happening again tonight. We will have Matt Fortuna. He was sick as a dog earlier this week. He was going to join us on Tuesday, came down with a bad illness. He's good. We'll talk both men's basketball and football with him, too. Paul's Top 5 is on Chuck Norris, who passed away. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much when you give us, whether it's a minute or what we hope is 2.5 hours every day, and this is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. You have opportunities with one of their best vehicles, truck, SUV, whatever, used or pre-owned, and also brand new. Right now, the 2026 Ram 1500 Lone Star gets 2.9% financing for 72 months and $5,250 in a rebate. Or you can stretch out your payments with 4.9% financing for 84 months, but you still get the $5,250 back. So earlier today, I have a bike. I rode the bike on the dam and then went all the way to the gym, which is about 2 miles away. And when I was driving in, I saw like a Tesla and a few other cars. This guy comes driving up, and it is what I'm talking about, a 2026 Ram 1500 Lone Star. Talk with him about it. These pickup trucks these days are like having a luxurious SUV. And he was showing me all the bells and whistles and had a great time. It's available right now with what I've said, 2.9%, 72 months, $5,250 rebate, or 4.9%, 84 months, $5,250 rebate. Ted Teague, General Manager, CEO, David Gray handles all of those of who's going to sell you a car. And he's fantastic, and so is his staff. Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
Celebrating the Declaration of Deals at Allen Samuels in Waco. Right now, get $11,000 off a new Ram 1500 Lone Star, plus 2.9% for 72 months. Cash in on $11,000 off a new Ram 2500 Lone Star Crew Cab, or choose 0% for 36 months, plus no payments for 90 days. Feel secure with America's best full-size truck powertrain 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty at Allen Samuels.
I pitched in the major leagues for 24 years, and let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. semaglutide. Affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This 4 o'clock hour is brought to you by Stonewood Dental, your one-stop shop for your dental needs, specializing in teeth cleaning, fillings, crowns, sealants, root canals, IV sedation, extractions, implants, bridges, dentures, full mouth restorations, and bioaesthetic dentistry. Our priority is your comfort from the moment you walk through the front door. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. Now it's time for 365 Sports.
We continue the show. It's the 4 o'clock hour. Thank you for your time. The TFNB, your Bank for Life studio. Appreciate all of our sponsors for being a part of what we do every single day. Kevin Flaherty joins us, basketball analyst, mind, writer, columnist, broadcaster, and all of that. Kevin, we've had a couple of nuggets. How about the VCU and coming way back to beat North Carolina to start with that one?
Yeah, I'm not sure that North Carolina fans are going to look at that and want to give VCU a lot of credit for it. I think it's one of those things that when you look at it now, I think I saw that there have been 6 comebacks of 15 or more points basically in the NCAA tournament, and 2 of them belonged to North Carolina under Hubert Davis. Of course, once was in the national title game against Kansas, and then this lost to VCU. But that was a really tough VCU team. They executed really well down the stretch. They found a mismatch that they could take advantage of. And that's the thing about the NCAA tournament. You know, they say that styles make fights, and that's no more true than what you see in the bracket. There are some times where you think, oh, this team is going to coast because, you know, they're just better than these other team, but you wind up having a matchup or two that you can exploit, and one team moves on and the other one doesn't.
Joshua Jefferson has a pretty bad-looking injury now.
Yeah, boot on right now.
Yeah, boot on right now. You know, sometimes these things in a day can look better, but it didn't look good when it happened. It doesn't look good that he's got a boot on right now. How much does Joshua Jefferson take Iowa State out of the Final Four conversation if he's not there?
Well, honestly, every time I've had an ankle injury, it's looked a lot worse the second day.
Yeah.
And you know, you don't really know anything now. It makes sense. I think a lot of people see boot, crutches, and it sounds all the alarm bells, and that's just not really the case anymore. You do that, you know, almost as a preventative measure. Hey, he doesn't need to put weight on it. We're winning this game. Let's go ahead and make sure he doesn't have to put weight on it, and then you'll reevaluate tomorrow. But to get to your question, yeah, if he's out, that's the single thing that I think makes this Iowa State team Final Four worthy. And they're a great team, and you saw that today. Obviously, I mean, Momcilovic isn't having a huge game. Tamin Lipsey isn't having a huge game. Jefferson goes out without having much of an impact, and they're still, you know, absolutely destroying in this game. Heisey's got over 20 points. But at the same time, when you look at Iowa State's ability to match up with the elite of the elite in college basketball, that revolves around how awkward Josh Jefferson is for other people to prepare for, because he's somebody that can light you up. He can score 25 points on a given day. He's somebody that can crash the glass. He's a good defender, but also he's somebody that can create if you send extra guys to him. And that's how that ball movement starts. That's how you get Toure with good looks. That's how you get Lipsey with good looks. Momcilovic can seemingly get a good look whenever he wants with his height and length and his ability to move off the ball. But without Jefferson, it's hard to see this team getting to a Final Four, just because he's kind of that guy, right? You would say the same thing about Duke without Boozer, or you would say the same thing about Kansas without Peterson, or Arizona probably. I know Jaden Bradley was the guy that won Big 12 Player of the Year, but if they were without Krivas or Burries or one of their guys, I think it's really hard to see them putting together that type of run if he can't go. And so you're really hopeful that the swelling goes down when they look at it tomorrow, it feels a little bit better, and then he's able to go. Otherwise, they could lose their very next game.
So, Kevin, it's been a pretty good start for the Big 12 outside of injury scares with Texas Tech, Arizona winning earlier today. But BYU goes down last night, and what was likely the only time we'll see A.J. DeBonsa in a March Madness game. Texas kind of felt like one of those teams once they got in of they win that playoff game, like, hey, maybe they could go on a little bit of a run. Just I guess your thoughts unpacking BYU's abrupt end, the end of DeBonsa most likely, and how dangerous is Texas moving forward in your eyes with Gonzaga up next?
Yeah, I hated this BYU season for BYU, right? Because you had the injuries and the things that limited maybe what they could have been this year. Because I do think BYU could have been a Final Four team had Richie Saunders stayed healthy, had their depth not been depleted, and all of the things going along with that. But I thought you made a good point about Texas, because Texas at its best points this year has looked like a team that's really difficult on a night in, night out basis. They're not always going to be that team, but when you look at the teams that cause trouble in March, a lot of times they are the awkward fits when you're going up against Swains and players like that, where, maybe they're a little bit, I keep saying awkward. Awkward's the wrong word for it. But they're a little bit different than maybe what you see on a night in, night out basis, and so they're a little bit more difficult to prepare for. And the truth is that Texas can probably beat just about anybody if they're playing their game and if they're playing really well. They played well against BYU. They led for most of that game, and then they made the key plays down the stretch. The downside is I think a lot of us would have loved to see DeBonsa have a chance to maybe have a Kemba Walker type run and propel them on while really scoring and doing well. And his college career is done, which is kind of an unfortunate thing too, because he was so much fun to watch.
There was drama about the acquisition of Rob Wright from Baylor, who had signed and agreed to be at Baylor, and then of course changed his mind. So he signs and he's at BYU, gets a nice chunk of money. And he had a big game here in Waco earlier this year, but it seems like when they needed him to step up consistently that it wasn't quite there. What were your thoughts, Kevin?
Yeah, do you guys remember a guy named Tully Corcoran who used to write Fox Sports Southwest and everything? Yeah. So Tully wrote about Tyshawn Taylor once that his brilliance came when he played on the edge of the knife. And that I thought that was such a brilliant description, because it was like, this is your path. It's a very thin path to stardom. And if you tilt just ever so slightly, that pursuit of brilliance is what, maybe makes you fall off in the moment you need somebody to shine it. And I feel like Rob Wright's got some of that, right? Like he's not a good defender. He's somebody that can make questionable decisions. And he's somebody that he's got kind of this, I hate to use a phrase from a few years ago, but he's got kind of that YOLO thing to him, right? Where there are times when the irrational confidence really pays off. You guys saw it last year when Baylor played Kansas in Waco, and Rob Wright was brilliant and brought Baylor back from getting absolutely blown out, and Baylor wound up winning that game, by a pretty comfortable margin. But he plays on the edge of that knife. And I think that when you want that type of player to execute consistently, when you want that guy to be like a Jaden Bradley who is consistent in big moments, I think that's where Rob Wright maybe falls a little bit short.
The Twitter anger from BYU fans last night, in the most polite way possible, about Rob Wright was kind of startling to me. I knew that they'd been upset about his last couple of weeks, but after last night, man, it was kind of a shock.
Yeah, I think so. And it was interesting. I didn't know if you guys saw it. Hunter Dickinson did an interview.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, where he talked about, the difference and, hey, this wasn't fun. This is a job now. And I have a really good friend who's a trainer down in the Wichita area, trains a lot of top football players. And one of the first things that he tells his guys when it looks like, hey, you're going to be a college guy, is he's like, you can't have it both ways. He's like, it is awesome that you get to be, paid for your efforts, that you get to make money in ways that people before you couldn't. But the flip side of that is nobody's going to excuse it and say, he's just a college kid anymore. There's a level of investment. And I think fans are much quicker to kind of down on a kid when he doesn't perform, because he is now getting paid at a high level to perform. And I think you see some of that with a Rob Wright, where if he just struggled, if he struggled, you know, in 2010. I'm not saying people wouldn't be mad at him, but I don't think you would see the same level of vitriol that you see now when somebody doesn't perform and people are saying, well, gosh, this guy got paid this much money to play for us. He really needs to come through when it matters the most. And when you don't, you can't fall back on the, oh, this is a 19, a 20, 21-year-old kid anymore. Now it's, hey, you're making this money, and that money is for you to execute in March.
I thought he let some of the teammates that were paycheck bonus babies off the hook a little bit because I don't think it was the fans that made them underachieve. Like that was the thing. Like that was where I understand what he's saying, and he has absolutely right to share his feelings and say that, but also like to tell the full story of that team. I think he left some details out.
Yeah, I think that's very fair, and I also think it's very easy to sit there with a microphone and down your teammates too, and say, hey, you know, there were guys in the room who weren't invested, and you know, Hunter Dickinson didn't do everything perfectly either, and you know, when you look at, he said, hey, I had 18 and 11. Well, okay, but you weren't a great defender, you know, and you didn't show up against Arkansas to the level that you had previously. And I'm not trying to down Hunter Dickinson. I'm just saying, you know, I think that it's very easy to sit there and aim at everybody else. It's a lot harder to kind of cast inward and say, I could have done this better. I could have done that better. And I think, you know, that's a part of this too, is it did feel sort of like, well, I was invested and I was trying really hard and I was getting down by fans for not doing this, but my teammates weren't all the way in it. And I thought that was, you know, kind of cruddy too.
Kevin, KU, and Cal Baptist. I mean, obviously the Jayhawks are favored here, but what's kind of your feeling heading into this one? And then what looks like, if the high seeds went out, it would be a St. John's, a very interesting matchup there in round number 2. Just how you feeling about the Jayhawks rolling into this weekend?
Yeah, have you guys seen Daniels play before? For Cal Baptist, the little guard. He's listed 5'10", which at the mid-major level usually means you're about 5'6". But he is one of the most fun guys to watch in the country because it feels like every shot he takes is difficult, and he's a difficult shot maker. And so Kansas, yes, you know, obviously big favorites against Cal Baptist, but also Daniels is one of those guys that if he is heating up and he's one of those without a conscience guys, and he scored 41, I think, in one of their tournament games. If he's that version of himself, then maybe Cal Baptist can hang around and make this thing a little uncomfortable. As far as Kansas and St. John's, I like St. John's. I think when that matchup came out, a lot of people looked at how many games in a row St. John's had won and how good they'd been since the start of conference play. But the truth is, outside of UConn, they haven't really played a whole lot of people. And I'm not as sure on St. John's as maybe some other people are. And so that doesn't mean that St. John's can't beat Kansas. I think we've seen quite a bit this year that Kansas can beat Kansas all by itself, right? Without any help. And so I think when you're looking at that game, it's a game that Kansas absolutely can win. If you see a good version of Kansas, Kansas can beat St. John's. Kansas has beaten better teams than St. John's this year. St. John's, a lot like Kansas, by the way, has struggled away from home this year. And so I think it's a really fascinating matchup. Obviously, you've got the side story of Zuby Ejiofor, you know, potentially having a revenge game against Kansas after starting his career there. He's a terrific player. I'm fascinated to see how that matchup with Flory goes, but I really do think that when you look at that game, it's a game Kansas may have the better backcourt, and St. John's I would expect actually to be favored, but I don't know that Kansas won't pull through that one and represent potentially a really interesting Sweet 16 matchup for Duke. Remember when they played earlier this year, Kansas didn't have Darren Peterson.
I think that we've not seen the best from Darren Peterson yet. I mean, you know, and that look, he's got a few games here, however many they have, before it's over in college basketball to paint that masterpiece. I have a feeling it's coming. I think that he's got it, you know, in him, and I just think that now that like the cramping story and all that stuff is out, he might be a little unburdened.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it feels like the weight would be off at this point. There's not anything hiding in the background, not any skeletons like we've talked about on the show. There wasn't anything sinister with it, even though you saw a lot of the narrative basically saying, oh, he doesn't care about basketball, he's load managing, all these different things. With the story being out there, I think he can play a little bit freer. To your point, Paul, when you look at that first half against BYU, I think that's about as good as we've seen Darren Peterson and about as good as we've seen Kansas look. And if that is still in there, if that's a club in Kansas's golf bag, I think that this is a team that could even, surprise Duke in that Sweet 16 matchup. Of course, Duke has kind of an awkward matchup with TCU in that round of 32 as well. And I'm not sure which way that one's going to go after the way Duke played against Siena. Siena ran some great offense, but guys, I have never seen it. I was born in 1981. I'll put that on the table. The last time a team played an NCAA tournament game where all 5 guys played all 40 minutes and they made no subs was the 1979 Final Four. And so when you look at that, you just saw Siena's legs die on him against Duke, I feel like, in the last, 5-8 minutes, whatever it was. But, you don't necessarily want to catch TCU on TCU's best night either.
That was magic. And Michigan State beating Larry Bird, not that game, but to win the championship. Oh,
that DePaul team that year was really good. That played Indiana State in the Final Four, and the DePaul team was the one that didn't sub. And, of course, Larry Bird and Indiana State went through. So if there's a lesson from this, it's make at least one sub, right?
Yes, sir. One more question, because you're not far away from Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm a proud Nebraska fan. Everyone knows the history. The story, I did not realize this, Fred Hoiberg, who we know has been at Iowa State, etc., his grandfather coached at Nebraska in the late 50s and even one year beat Wilt Chamberlain, and he was the coach at Nebraska. And here we have Hoiberg taking a program that had never won an NCAA tournament, and they look good doing it. Whether they can beat Vanderbilt, who knows? But, man, they're fun to watch.
They are so fun to watch. And this is the Nebraska team I think a lot of us thought Hoiberg would have with the Huskers, because he's that kind of coach. If you remember his Iowa State teams, they were really, really fun. Some of the most fun games I can remember is when they would make their runs in the Big 12 tournament, and you'd be sitting there in Kansas City thinking, man, even if you got them down 10, it felt like that league could be gone in a minute because of the way that they played. But no, it's great for them to get that weight off their shoulders as well, and a little bit of history. But we went down yesterday to the Power and Light area in Kansas City to watch some of the games, and wound up being surrounded by some Husker fans. And even when those guys were up 20, 25 points, I mean, they were celebrating every basket like it was a close game, because I think they were just happy to get over that hump and have that stat kind of disappear.
Thank you, Kevin. I'll talk to you soon. Craig, Paul, as well, thanks for your time. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the games. Kevin Flaherty joins us on 365 Sports. One note about North Carolina and the loss, they had 3 points in overtime. Evan Miyakawa said that there's 758 overtime periods played this season in college basketball. Teams scored more than 3 points 97.6% of the time. And they basically got skunked in the loss to VCU.
Yeah, I only caught the last few minutes of regulation, and then I watched all of that, and then all of overtime, and that was wild to watch neither team be able to make a bucket there for a good portion of OT, and just back and forth they kept going up and down the court and brick or rollout or whatever, and it was crazy how they couldn't seemingly score, neither team there, for what felt like an eternity, but was really only like 3 or 4 minutes, I suppose. But yeah, that was an ugly loss. Hubert Davis has been there for 5 seasons. I think that's more of a sample size than a lot of teams even take if things aren't going the right direction. So I feel like if North Carolina were to make a move, then nobody would really bat too much of an eye about it, unless maybe there's inner circle type things that us just outsiders aren't privy to, because that's always something that you don't quite know. Like, for example, this Kyle Whittingham thing. I'm sure there were people in Salt Lake City and Provo that knew some of the dirty details of the contract and the demands and things like that, but we didn't all know that until today. The rest of the country found out. So you're kind of going off like, what you sort of know. So I don't know, like, what maybe we don't know as far as Hubert Davis goes that would keep him more attached there or not. But 5 years, yeah, you can't be losing games
Not
like
there.
that at a place like that. So we'll see. But, man, what a big job opening that would be. And I don't even pretend to begin on, like, who the obvious guys would be, but that would be something we're going to be clearly talking about if we were to go that direction.
He's won a bunch. Like, go ahead, Pope. He's won a bunch. He's a legend there. But, man, that's not enough. Not with North Carolina, Kansas, Kentucky, et cetera.
Yeah, first-round tourney exits multiple times in a short amount of time is not good.
Well, we should mention, too, like, they were up, 19 points, and just to allow that to fizzle away the way that it did was unbelievable.
We were at this best year was his first year. They went to the runner-up. Remember the games in Fort Worth?
And they almost lost
and
that
they almost
one, too.
lost that
Yeah,
game, like up 20-something.
Yeah, now that was a 1-8 game because Baylor, was a very high seed or whatever it was. But, yeah, Baylor had to come back. Brady Manick got kicked out. It was wild. I'll say this about North Carolina's athletic department right now. I'm not sure I trust their overall decision making.
Is it Bubba? Still Bubba?
He's on his way out. I believe he's retiring soon. But even still, like the Belichick thing makes sense on the surface, but like as you peel back every layer, it just doesn't seem like it was done, with the idea of being in the modern college football space very well. And then with Hubert Davis, they gave him this big extension last year in the midst of a very mediocre North Carolina season, and now they're going to be stuck paying this massive buyout to him. Now, look, they may have it. I mean, there's tons of money flowing around there, but, those decisions to me are just kind of odd and not – and this is kind of maybe why their athletic program has been – kind of stuck in neutral for a little while.
Yeah, and it's a hell of a school, man.
Yeah.
Bubba Cunningham's gone this summer. They've already announced all that. They're bringing over a dude from RFK Racing, and that's one of those, I guess, newer types of industry hires that you see a lot of nowadays, guys coming in from the pro sports world and having experience in managing contracts and NIL and things like that. They will have their new guy this summer, but it has been a bit of a weird couple of years, and all the while we know that you're trying to maneuver your way into a better situation conference-wise, so you're trying to throw your weight around while at the same time you don't have a lot of good weight to throw around at the moment. It's still a prestigious school as far as, I'm not going to say academics, but even though it does, it's just always a little tainted because of the scandal. It's always a little tainted because of that, even though that was years ago.
Absolutely.
But it's still a prestigious school. I'm sure it's still highly coveted by the SEC or the Big Ten or whoever, but it has been a very weird last year or two for UNC athletics.
All right, when we come back, we're going to look at the most intriguing and not get to all of them because there's a bunch of coordinators that changed. We talked and asked Zach Barnett about that in the 3:30 segment. The ones in the Big 12, Muschamp and Chad Morris, among some of the others, Jim Knowles, those type of guys, big names. We'll come back with that in the next segment. Thank you very much. We'll keep you up to date with the basketball games that are going on. Tennessee is blowing out Miami of Ohio by 19 at halftime, and this is 365 Sports. Surf and turf is what you get tonight. Nick Caldwell, the general manager, arrived in the late summer, right before the fall semester, right before football season. And I met him down near, there's double elevators on the ground floor at McLean Stadium. And met him there. He has been a part of helping renovate and spice up casinos and other great places to go for events. And he had big plans. It took a while, but they have completely it's so beautiful. It's bright. It's spacious, what they've done, even from just remodeling to lighting and the colors on the wall. And they, of course, have great food. They host events all the time. They have luncheons and banquets and speaking engagements, etc. Surf and Turf is tonight. And Nick asked me if I wanted to come out to dinner up there one day, and I think I might even do it tonight. Smoak Prime Rib is on Saturdays. Half off any bottle of wine. It is the Baylor Club. Memberships available. Tell them 365 Sports sent you on I-35 in the Brazos River inside McLean Stadium.
It's 27 years for Richard Car Motors, and we're celebrating with big anniversary savings. Encore GX offers stylish design, a quiet, refined ride, advanced safety, and a premium interior. Right now, during Richard Car's 27th anniversary sale, save $5,000 on any 2026 Buick Encore GX in stock. Thank you, Central Texas, for 27 years. Log on, call, or come by today to find big anniversary savings now.
At Richard Car, we give you more.
With over 25 years of excellence in IT, Carrion Solutions is your trusted technology partner. From managed IT services to cutting-edge cybersecurity, our expert team delivers tailored solutions that drive success. Our portfolio includes products such as Veeam, Bitdefender, Microsoft, Cisco, and Fortinet. Call David Carrion and his team of experts. Call 888-522-2221 or visit us at carrionsolutions.com.
Bold are the adventurous. Determined are the leaders. Faithful are the healers. At Baylor, you'll find your calling, your people, and your purpose. Dare to be you, indeed.
Pepperoni Magnifico. Pepperoni Magnifico. Marco's Pepperoni Magnifico. Classic and crispy cut pepperoni, 3 melty cheeses, all on our fresh made dough. And starting at just $12.99 for a large, it's no wonder Marco's was named America's favorite pizza chain.
I pitched in the major leagues for 24 years, and let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
This is 365 Sports.
Matt Fortuna joins us today at 5 o'clock. We've got, in this segment here, there have been a bunch of coordinators, both offensive or defensive coordinators. Some schools have replaced both. And we're going to go down the list. First of all, this is going to be a topic and discussion that might last a few days. Not every day, but we'll start with the Big 12. Here's the graphic, thanks to Rez, the defensive coordinator. Kelly Poppinga, he's a former player, Green Bay Packer, right? And he is now
that's Brady Poppinga.
Oh, it's his brother. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. He now takes over because BYU lost their defensive coordinator, and Kalani Sitake with a guy that he knows.
Yeah, he's got probably, I don't want to say the biggest shoes to fill on this list, but maybe the biggest shoes to fill on this list because the guy he's replacing that went to Michigan is one of the more sought-after coordinators in the entire country. But I think that when you set up the culture and the system that Kalani Sitake has, it shouldn't be as big of a transition. But he does have huge shoes to fill because BYU's defense has been so effective the last few years.
Yeah, Jay Hill is who you guys are referring to, who is now at Michigan with Kyle Whittingham. And Paul asking Zach Barnett earlier about all of the coordinator hires, and there have been so many as we kind of discussed. So, yeah, we can't do all of the various coordinator hires around the country all at once. But, guys, go back to the first slide there, BYU.
We're not going to get through this whole first slide, but let's leave that up for a little bit.
But I think Poppinga, he's got a lot of experience with BYU. He's a physical, just kind of nasty defensive style that I think translates really well to the personnel that they have and the type of football they want to play. Been a really good coordinator as far as the special teams go. And, a guy that a lot of BYU people love. He's one of them. He's a guy who's had a lot to do with player development and some of the stars that have come from that program on the defensive side, and he's been around a long time. So I think he'll be great. I don't know if he'll be as good as Jay Hill like 2025 right away, but I think they'll be okay. I think this will be a nice little transitional hire for BYU, and he's got a lot of talent coming back that should make it easier.
Yeah, he does. Baylor with Joe Klanderman. We had Dave Aranda on yesterday. Asked him about that. Craig, you asked him about it, and he mentioned how Klanderman in the defensive setup is in the secondary is a little bit different than what they've been running at Baylor.
Yeah, he is not as hands-on as he used to be with the defensive side of the ball, but he's still going to have some say. So I think that's a good move. I just the whole thing with like we're struggling now. We need you to take over, and now we need you to give up the reins a little bit to Matt Powledge, and then that doesn't work, so we now need to take back over again. And it's just I think this will be good for Aranda's just mind to be able to focus on the things that a head coach needs to be able to focus on. They did not create many havoc plays or turnovers last year. They were very mundane, just sort of their defense, and I think he's going to be a lot more aggressive. I think that he's going to be able to hopefully help them get some more fumbles and interceptions to kind of turn the tide and turn the momentum and just do some things to help out the offense, which happened very rarely a year ago. Another guy who player development, he's put some guys in the pros that were pretty good at the college ranks, and a guy who's familiar with the area. So Baylor's just in such a weird, like they could have hired anybody and I would still just have my reservations because of just sort of where they find themselves. But from all indications, Klanderman's fit in well, and there's reasons to be optimistic about what he can do.
Yeah, he's been a consistent defensive coordinator in his career and a really good defensive coach. I actually don't worry about the coaching at Baylor. I worry about the talent.
That's
I think that's the thing. And I think that's the wall that they've hit, because I think Dave Aranda is a really, really good coach. I think that Jake Spavital is a really, really good coach. And I think Joe Klanderman's a really, really good coach. But you can coach people excellently, but you only have so much ability and talent. And I'm curious to see where that is, because I don't think it's been very high the last couple of years overall, but I do think that this is a good group of coaches that if they have the talent, they can elevate it. And maybe they were elevating the talent they had. It just wasn't as good as it needed to be, so you can only raise the floor so much.
Here's one of my concerns coming out of the Aranda interview yesterday was when he started talking about NIL. Like, they have NIL if they need to get NIL. But he also was pretty clear they don't have as much NIL or close to as a lot of others. Did you get that sense as well? Like,
yeah, no, he admitted that.
Yeah, and so
where they might be 5, 10, or 15 million.
I mean, he just didn't say like straight out like Texas Tech has 20 million more they're spending than us, or Oklahoma State with Eric Morris or whoever it may be. But yeah, that was the first time I've really heard like an expressed concern without it being kind of put out that way, that we don't have the money to pay as many of the horses as we would like. So they've got what they've got, and they lost some really good players. I think, Keaton Thomas, for example, like no longer in the roster, is a guy you lose. But at the same
that
time,
hurt because he was almost like a spokesperson, a lightning rod for that defense, and him leaving, that one got a kick in the shins.
And now you're sitting there kind of relying on guys who maybe have developed a little bit, but there's no stars, and then you're relying on Klanderman to bring over his guys to help you out, and so hopefully that will help out. But yeah, there is a lack of star power. By the way, this is off topic, but Kamarian Morgan, who was at one point a big edge recruit pickup for them, and he's still taking visits in the training.
Yeah. Was he at South Oak Cliff or something like that? Where's he from?
I think it was South Oak Cliff, but it's been a while since I remember looking at that. I believe it was South Oak Cliff.
Settle down.
But he's still out there taking. It's like, dude, it's March 20th. I don't know how you're still taking visits, but every time I follow him on Twitter from back when his original recruitment, and he's still out there. Everybody else has like found a place now, and he's like, all right, I got a couple visits upcoming. But nevertheless, like that was a guy that they hoped would really branch out and be a star for them. It never occurred. So maybe that happens for him elsewhere, but. Yeah, they do have a lack of star power. So
and I got a stat to go ahead.
And I think, part of it is, I think what makes coaches nervous on that, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, is when we were talking about the salary cap exemptions and the bird rule type rule that the Big Ten would like to pass, is that because nobody really knows how much everybody is spending, look, $15 million might be exactly what you need. It's probably not, but or it might be close enough to what you need. And if you spend it effectively, you can get the guys you want. But because there's so much misinformation and subterfuge and smoke and mirrors out there, you really don't know. And so, and you kind of negotiate against ghosts a lot. You're not negotiating against yourself. You're negotiating against ghosts when somebody says, well, I was going to get $3 million at this other school. And you're like, well, we really want this guy. He's perfect for us. So let's give him the $3 million. Well, he might've been only getting 1.6, and there's no way to prove those things. So I think that, it's about how effective you spend the money that you have available to you.
I tell you this, here's a stat. You mentioned turnovers. They were 110th out of 130 as far as forcing turnovers. They had 11 turnovers. They were 131st in turnover margin. So not only that means that they're not getting turnovers, but they also are going to lose some. That is horrible. Not horrible, horrible. And you hope Klanderman can help him with that.
They should almost be better by default because they were so not good last year that you think, well, how could they possibly not be as good, especially not better, I think is probably where most people's heads are at. And it'll be a real interesting thing to see early on of just him calling plays and it not being Aranda for the first time in a while. Still kind of learning about some of the transfer portal guys they brought in, like every other school across the country during this time of year. You think certain guys are good, but you don't really know. I mean, they don't have a complete void of talent, but they don't have any surefire stars. They've got guys who because of their recruiting ranking, or you're hoping they'll develop into something. And by the way, you brought up the Big Ten thing again, and I made this pretty clear, but I don't know if I phrased it as clearly as I could. Effectively, what the Big Ten, if they got their way, and then subsequently the SEC would get with having these bird rights and having more money outside of the salary cap that's not really a salary cap to then spend on returning players, they would have their cake and eat it too, because then what they could do is hold on to their young players, develop them traditionally as they would, but then also go and spend a massive amount of money on any place to fill holes. So that whole story that we talked about at great length, I think would be disastrous for anybody who's not really well equipped money-wise, because you're already having a hard time keeping up with the Joneses to begin with. Now Ohio State can effectively keep all the guys they want to and then go take all of the guys that they want. And if you can't play in that game, then you're really going to be lost.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Cincinnati. Both coordinators. In fact, they have co-offensive coordinators for Scott Satterfield, Nick Cardwell, and Pete Thomas. Nate Woody, the defensive coordinator. I don't know much about them. I do remember Cardwell. So Cincinnati is going with two completely different, three overall coordinators for Scott Satterfield.
Yeah, Scott Satterfield's in an interesting year here where he's got a new quarterback in J.C. French. He lost a star quarterback, so both Cardwell and Thomas have J.C. French the fourth to coach up and hope that he works out. He's thrown for a lot of yards at Georgia State. Cincinnati's defense was okay last year. It wasn't – I don't think anybody's going to write home about anything, but their best couple of players, including Dante Corleone, gone.
Yeah.
And so those are tough to fill. So I'm curious to see what they do there. And again, I think with Cincinnati, I think it comes down to, do you have the talent in place? Can you keep whatever forward momentum you have, even though it's kind of been, they hit a wall at the end of the year each year. I think you can see it there with Scott Satterfield. He was very confident going into last year, but with new coordinators, especially without the same talent at quarterback, essentially your two best players are gone, and one of them is going to be playing in the conference. And Brendan Sorsby, that's really tough to overcome.
Cardwell was the offensive line coach. Then he's promoted to co-offensive coordinator. He's been awarded for those Joe Moore awards. Teams' offensive line's been up for those awards. Obviously, they need a boost.
I mean, these are in-house guys on the offensive side. So they were working with Brendan Sorsby. They were working with all their stars over the last few, and so not much of a getting to know process there at all, other than these guys just filling out those roles and what that looks like. But always interesting to have co-coordinators, because that can work really well, and sometimes that doesn't work well at all. Scott Satterfield, I think, knows what he's doing, but there are a lot of question marks with that program in general. And so to be replacing both sides of your coordinators. Willie Fritz showed that you can do that and not skip a beat. In fact, you can be better, actually, despite losing some pretty good guys. But, I don't know about Cincinnati.
And one thing about Thomas, he also was on staff. He was the quarterback's coach, so he will probably be the pass game coordinator and then Cardwell, the run game coordinator, too.
Yeah, those guys were both already there.
Yeah.
It was the defensive coordinator that's new. He's coming over from Army, so that's the new face. But the
Nate
in-house,
Woody, the defensive coordinator.
Nate Woody, but Cardwell and Thomas, that's in-house guys. So, again, I don't think they'll probably skip too much of a beat there other than probably a pretty significant downgrade at quarterback. I mean, I don't want to start overrating Brendan Sorsby just because he was the hot free agent guy, but he was really good. And when he was at his best, he was pretty great. And I think having the talent upgrade around him at Tech is going to be something really fun to watch. But J.C. French, and there's maybe Samaj Jones. We'll see how that goes. I don't know where they are as far as when they want to name a starter and do all that, but J.C. French is the logical choice.
All right, let's go to the next team, which is Colorado and Dion. This is one that's gotten a lot of good pub with Brennan Marion, young. Seemed like this. He's going to be a head coach. In fact, he was for Sacramento State. He's got a good reputation. Chris Marv, the new defensive coordinator. Dion has really trimmed out a lot of the fat, literally, because Warren Sapp is gone in his overall coaching staff.
It was cool to have some NFL guys on staff, but I think, not surprisingly, Warren Sapp maybe rubbed people the wrong way after a while. Based on just
when they made these moves, Sapp left immediately.
Yeah. I don't know that he was all that mourned when he departed, and how much of a say he really had in that, just based on reading some of the tea leaves out there. But regardless, Colorado's changing up everything, and Brennan Marion's a really hot name, and the go-go offense, we've heard all about that. And at Sacramento State, I think part of the reason why I don't get as high on Sacramento State and their future was if Brennan Marion was signing up for this great gig with all this money and these big moves and, hey, we're about to go and throw our weight around a little bit, you left after a very short amount of time as head coach there. It's a logical choice because it is, I think, a step up in some ways going to be an OC, even though you were a head coach. I can see if your path is to get to bigger schools, that's maybe what you would do as opposed to sticking around in Sacramento and just kind of seeing where the changes all take you. But that's a juicy name. That's a fun name to throw into the mix and get people excited for his up-tempo and just kind of the young blood and those kinds of things. So I think Brennan Marion is a very exciting hire, and hopefully can give them some identity, because last year they really had none offensively. I mean, the year before is easy. It's Shedeur Sanders and it's Travis Hunter, and it's pretty easy to know what Colorado is focused around. Last year it was just sort of all over the place and never really that good. So I think he'll bring them an identity and definitely make them a bit more lethal. And then on the defensive coordinator side, don't know a ton about Marv other than they brought him over this offseason, and I don't know. I'm very in flux on Colorado and my expectations for 2026. I don't know where to really – I know I'm leaning more negative than positive with them, but I need to study up a bit more on Marv, admittedly, and see kind of what his specialty is. But, we'll see what happens there as he replaces Robert Livingston.
Well, Paul, I told you to study up on Marv. What did you find out?
Chris Marv, actually, I knew who he was because he was the inside linebackers coach at FSU for a little bit. So he's a young coach. He's 37, 38 years old. And so there's not much to know about him as a coordinator just yet. But I do like that Dion is going and hiring a young coach who's on the up. And I do like that he's hiring somebody like Brennan Marion, who is a coach that is very well regarded. I do think that Dion, because of his ego and because he's trying to reinvent how people see coaches and how people see programs and all those things. And I appreciate all of that. But sometimes you can push that too far. And when you bring in some of the guys he has at coordinator, like Sean Lewis was a good hire, but they were not a fit together. You know, Sean Lewis has gone to San Diego State back as a head coach. He's going to be a head coach. Like, he's going to keep moving up the ranks on and on and on over the time. So that was a good hire. It just wasn't a fit for Colorado. I think with Brennan Marion, and you have a quarterback that's as highly touted and sought after as Juju Lewis is, I love this match because it is absolutely going out and getting a respected coordinator, a quarterback developer, an offensive mind like Brennan Marion to shepherd a young quarterback who you need to kind of shoot some life into the program. And I think Brennan Marion will have a better eye for offensive line talent. He'll have a better eye for a running game and all these different things. His offense is very, very fun, and I think that that's going to be good for Colorado. As far as Chris Marv, again, he's young, so let's see what he can do. Give him the talent. I think the biggest thing with Colorado, though, is they really have to find more of a balance in the way that they build the roster, because it's been, 3 years of Dion and 3 years of wholesale changes on the roster. There needs to be a balance. Like, you're not really going to come through clean anymore, but he's got to find a better balance through that.
Well, let's go through. We've got 2 more.
I'd say we just finish this slide to finish out the hour, because we can take this and make multiple segments over the next few weeks.
Put the slide up if you don't mind, the first page again. No, that's what I was going to do anyway, through Koltanek, because we know him. Iowa State, Tyler Roll and Jesse Bobbitt. Offense and D, of course, Jimmy Rogers, the new head coach, comes in from Washington State, Matt Campbell at Penn State. And so Iowa State's got 2 new coordinators because of the coaching transition.
And Roll's familiar to Iowa State. He was just there for a year 2 years ago. And so he's already been around Ames, and I think having that experience with the Lions can only help. I think having a little bit of NFL experience is never a bad thing. So, yeah, he's back in the college game. And then Bobbitt comes over with Jimmy Rogers from Wazoo, where he was DC, and they had a really good scoring defense last year. So that's some of the first things, like when that hire's made, is one of the top scoring defenses in America in 2025. So you hope that can carry over. Iowa State's another one that's just a real quandary for me, because we've known something.
Like the entire whiteboard's been erased.
Yeah, like exactly. Like we've known what Iowa State is now for like 10 plus years. They're Matt Campbell and kind of how he is, and it's his guys and all this and that. And just the program was on solid, regular footing for a really long time. And now, like Paul said, that's a really good way to put it, is the whiteboard's been completely erased. Like it's all new for Iowa State, and I think they're optimistic about Jimmy Rogers, as you should be. I mean, no need to be negative right now. They haven't even finished spring ball yet, but he does go and step into some really big shoes, because I think we almost forget. I know probably I'm maybe overstating this a little bit, but I do think we kind of do get lost in where Iowa State was pre-Matt Campbell.
Yeah.
And now we've gotten so used to them like winning 8 games at a minimum almost every year, and that's not normal for them. He made that the new normal for them, to where they're competing, playing for Big 12 titles.
And that's why I hope Iowa State fans enjoyed it and soaked it in.
I mean, I hope so. I mean, they had more than enough time to do so, and if they didn't, then sorry, putting the genie back in the bottle there, but I'm intrigued by the change and just what that looks like, because I don't know what to expect. But I think especially on the defensive side of the ball, that's a long-term relationship that Bobbitt's had with Rodgers. So that should be pretty solid. And then we'll see on roll and what that offense looks like. But they also lost a lot of talent thanks to Campbell's departure.
Andy Koltanek is back at KU. He was at KU, then he went to Penn State. Then James Franklin got fired, and he's now back with KU, and Lance Leipold, of course, thrilled to have him back.
Yeah, I think this is something that's very needed for Lance Leipold, who I don't think is necessarily under the gun yet. I think but he's in that lane because they're not finishing games, and that's on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. And when they were really running their most efficient, Andy Kotelnicki was there, and he's proven to be a really good developer of offensive talent. The run game was way better than when he was there. The talent they were able to find is better. He's got a keen eye for that. He and Lance can finish each other's sentences. They've done that, so I think this is really good for Kansas. It's something that they really, really, really needed, and I think that obviously if that doesn't work out, then things are going to change, but I think that this is the thing that maybe gets them back to where they were pointed at a couple years ago.
I'm a little less optimistic, because it's like getting back with your ex because it didn't work for them elsewhere. It's kind of how I view it. It's great to have him back because it's a known thing.
It wouldn't hurt to have Jalen Daniels still there, right?
I mean, even him by the end, it's almost like I'm almost ready to move on at this point.
I understand turn the page, but yeah.
But, yeah, on the one hand, you go, oh, well, this is a guy that we've had a massive amount of success with. This guy had our offense humming there over the last few years. But if you poll Penn State fans, I don't think you're getting a great response back. I think based on what I saw is, well, Penn State turned over everything because they made the move on Franklin. But had they not moved from Franklin, I think there would have been fans clamoring for Kotelnicki to be gone. Did not take Drew Aller to another level like I think a lot of people hoped.
83rd offense last year.
Yeah, they weren't good, and so I didn't see PSU fans shedding a tear whatsoever. I believe sort of the sentiment was that he got figured out as far as like the motions and things that he's doing offensively. Like maybe early on teams didn't quite know how to play that or defend it, and then you see it more like anything else. And so by the time like last year rolls around, there's no mystery here. Like the teams figured out the Andy Kotelnicki offense and what to eye and how to defend it and all those types of things. So great move as far as bringing some name recognition back and somebody that will definitely get people excited, but it's kind of lost its luster to me. And to be back after only 2 years away, I don't know. It doesn't get me as excited as probably does for some Jayhawks fans.
There's a reason James Franklin's not there anymore, but the loss to UCLA was the start of it. Penn State, 83rd total yards offense, but they were 35th in scoring. So they did capitalize and score at a much more efficient level. So there we are. With that's just part of the list. The Kansas, the last program, will come back with many more when we come back on Monday and early next week. We'll also look at the bigger names in the SEC, ACC, and also in the Big Ten. The Kamarion Morgan. Here's one of the things about what might be going on with all these visits. He's shooting a documentary called The Transfer Portal. So he's taking a lot of visits, and they're putting up the visits, and that's part of him being busy on the road because they're shooting a documentary about his journey. I think he's a very entrepreneurial young man. I believe when he was just being recruited and I was having NIL money thrown his way and whatnot, that I think just made some comments from time to time of he's a guy that, does want to branch out and do some stuff like that. And so good for him. I don't know how keen I would be to deal with that if I were coaches. I think I'd be like, oh, you're shooting documentaries, so you're dragging this out. All right, we'll go find somebody else. Well, don't get in the business then. Yeah.
I don't know, man. Look, edge rusher is a premium position, and he's an untapped talent as of right now.
Yep.
But, I think it'd be good for him to either go to Hollywood and start that career or to make a decision on where you're going to play next year, because it's nearly April and you're still out there on the market, and pretty much everybody else of value has made their decision as of, a few weeks ago. So it'll make for great movie drama, I suppose, but I don't know how great that'll make for the football side of things.
Couple of games that were not final when we started that segment about 30-40 minutes ago are now final, including Alabama. They were kind of hitting and missing early, of course, playing without Holloway. They win 90-70 over Hofstra. Iowa State scores 150. Actually, they score 108, beat Tennessee State by 34. But the story there, they were expected to win, move on to the second round, is the injury to Jefferson and how severe it might be. A couple of games still underway. Miami of Ohio getting thumped, but they did get that win on Wednesday. They're losing to Tennessee 55-36, early second half. And Villanova leads Utah State by just 2. And that game is midway through the second half.
And to be clear, good luck to Kamarion Morgan on wherever he ends up going.
No,
I'm not rooting against him or anything.
Seems like a good kid.
Yeah, seems like a good kid and a good young man. So wishing him the best. But, just kind of odd that he's still out there and he's announcing visits.
Now you know why.
Dude, it's not December. It's March. It's nearly April. And then the Alabama thing, Texas Tech next up for the Crimson Tide, so that ought to be a hell of a little game there.
And again, Alabama's not full throttle either. Tech, we know, is not full throttle, but Tech had all those players, like 5 players in double figures. I like that matchup, although Alabama's very athletic. It's one of those teams that, they jump over you. So Tech will have to make sure that they take care of the inside. Let me give you a couple more notes of college basketball, then we come and take a break for Matt Fortuna. Scott Cross, former UT Arlington coach, remember, was fired even though he was the most successful coach there, went to Troy. They were just knocked out by Nebraska. He is taking the job at Georgia Tech. Now,
great hire.
One note about when we hear about players in the portal and all that, I love Scott Cross. Again, I covered him when he was a JUCO player in Tyler. But it was less than 17 hours after they lost that he's named the head coach at Georgia Tech. So they're looking in different directions too. That's happening too. But good luck to Scott Frost. I hope he does well, gets a big boy job at Georgia Tech.
You are going to have a hell of a time not saying Scott Frost when talking about Scott
Frost.
I
am. I don't want him to get fired and get out of the business.
We'll chalk up another one for what about the coaches crowd? Because now you have your 1 millionth example that you can use against any argument.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. But his postgame was funny. He goes, I'd like to thank God for helping us get our guts taken out or whatever it was after the loss. And finally, St. Louis was one of the explosive teams. They put up 100-plus points, won by 25 or more, and they were a number 9 seed. The other team to do that as a 9th seed was Loyola Marymount. Back in the day with Paul Westhead, when they had what we mentioned it yesterday, Hank Gathers. And who was the guard, Paul, that we talked about? Bo Kimball.
Bo Kimball.
They beat Michigan in 1990, 149 to 115. So that's taking you back a long way for that kind of high-octane offense when it comes to the NCAA tournament. When we come back, Matt Fortuna, glad he's feeling better. We've got that huge part at the end with Paul's Top 5 on Chuck Norris passing away. We'll have the wheel, we'll have the quizzes and the polls. And this is 365 Sports.
Samuels Dodge in Waco, we're making a declaration of deals. And these deals are so big, even fans of the Dallas Cowboys think this might finally be the year. Drive home a new Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo for just $32,990, or a new Jeep Compass Latitude 4x4 for $29,990. Take $11,000 off a new Jeep Gladiator Sport, or choose 0% for 60 months. Or we pay your sales tax. Right now, no payments for 90 days. Happening now at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
Pepperoni Magnifico. Pepperoni Magnifico. Marco's Pepperoni Magnifico. Classic and crispy cut pepperoni, 3 melty cheeses, all on our fresh made dough. And starting at just $12.99 for a large, it's no wonder Marco's was named America's favorite pizza chain.
When you play hard, sometimes you fall hard. Sports injuries require special treatment. At Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, our team of expert doctors provides athletes and active adults with comprehensive sports medicine care, diagnostics. Whether you're in high school, college, or beyond, we'll help you get back on the field. Call on the team physicians for Baylor Athletics. Call Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics.
This 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson and Brad Wilson in Waco, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe, with an individualized approach to addressing your financial needs, including education, savings, planning for retirement, and protection strategies. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, making sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Now it's time for 365 Sports.
Here we go, this 5 o'clock hour. David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak. And good to know that one of our guests this week is feeling better, Matt Fortuna, the Inside Zone, the founder of that website, and does much, of course, in college basketball and football. Matt, thank you very much. Did you have the creeping crud, the 20 to 48-hour stuff? Can we hear you? Oh, boy. So we'll get him locked in here in just a minute. Those of you, by the way, in the chat, thank you very much for a lot of your comments. Someone earlier brought up snakes. And, the weather's getting warmer. And I asked a question. If a snake crawled into your bed, would you, one, blank the bed? Would you then have a heart attack, or would you just take the snake head on? What would you do? We got him? what would you do? What would you do if a snake crawled up? Even if it was late, it doesn't matter. You don't know initially if it's poisonous or not. I brought that up in the chat room, and I think most of the first one, I know what mine would be. I would be pooping myself while having a heart attack, period. With the snakes, it's that time of the year. Where I live, the condo, there are usually 3 to 5 somethings that are slithering around, especially when it gets pretty hot, like here. It's getting the 90s here in the state of, well, we are in the state of Texas.
I'm
I got the World Baseball Classic. We were hoping to get this yesterday.
We're good now.
Okay, good. Matt Fortuna joins us on 365 Sports, the founder of the Inside Zone. And Matt, how are you feeling, man? You had the 2 or 3 day bug?
Yeah, flu B, which is taking down the whole family. I'm out of the woods. My oldest and my wife now have it, but it is what it is. Glad we got the tech difficulties out of the way. Right as I was able to hear you, all I heard was a story about snakes and pooping yourself. So I'm glad I got in for the good stuff.
Yeah. I asked this question just treading water. If you were laying in bed and a snake crawled into your bed, poisonous of course or not, what would be the first thing that would happen with your body?
I would pinch myself and hope I'm having a nightmare and then wake up from that nightmare.
Yeah, with a nightmare, absolutely.
So, Matt, we are full into the tournament now. The best, 2 days in sports, probably the first couple days of this tournament. What is your favorite upset moment so far?
I think it's got to be Virginia Commonwealth beating North Carolina, and not just the upset itself, but the way it went down, the biggest first-round comeback in NCAA tournament history, coming back from 19 down in the second half, having a three-pointer at the end there to win it from Terrence Hill. I just think to see it come full circle, 19 years later, VCU, an 11 seed, beats Duke, a 6 seed, behind an Eric Maynard game-winning shot in 2007. To see it happen against North Carolina in another 11-6 game in 2026. I think it's moments like that that make March special. And VCU, and just the mid-majors in general, but particularly the A-10, for them to finally get their respect on a national stage. This is a program in the Rams now. I believe this is the 7th straight coaching regime that's made the NCAA tournament. You talk about sustained success and a tremendous fan base and administration and just the all-around passion that they have for men's basketball. It's always gratifying to see a program like that get their moment in the sun. And then to see Phil Martelli Jr., who we all obviously are familiar with his father, but to see Jr. get that win and then give a great press conference afterward where he shouts out the student beat writers for traveling all year round. Just a great moment that represents everything the sport and this time of the year is supposed to be about.
Will the contract save Hubert Davis from the seat getting too hot in your mind, or is North Carolina at a place where, hey, thanks for all you've done, but hey, it's been 5 years, this isn't good enough? Curious on your thoughts on that, and why is just everything so weird with North Carolina right now?
I would agree with that. I do think everything's weird, not just in basketball. Obviously, you want to take the 20,000-foot view, and football's got its own issues on and off the field right now. I don't think the contract's what saves them. I believe the buyout's only $5.2, $5.3 million, and maybe it's the football reporter and me laughing at that, saying that's nothing. I know it's always not a lot when it's not our money. But, I don't think that's a whole lot for a blue blood like North Carolina if they want to make a change. I think it has more to do with the family ties, the fact that he's one of their own. Roy Williams handpicked him as his successor. And maybe it's just me, and it's easy for me to say, not living there in that market and not being a part of the Carolina family, so to speak. I don't think it's been nearly as bad as people are making it out to be. Has it been tremendous? No, but the guy was a shot away from a national title in his first year. This was a team this year that was gutted by injuries that ruined any chance they had of making a run, even if they did hang on yesterday against VCU. So I don't think it's nearly as bad as the general public's making it out to be. That's not to say they can't do better and that he shouldn't face some pressure going into next season. But I'd also say the college basketball world as we know it right now in 2026-27 is a lot different than the one that Hubert Davis took over in 2022. And I think you got to ask yourself, you're North Carolina, who do we know definitively is going to do a better job while also getting this place? And I don't know if there's a clear answer to that question, not just for North Carolina, but for a lot of places right now.
You think Kansas State got the right guy after they've been – Jerome Tang had that great start, and, of course, that flamed out. Do you feel good about what they've done?
I think it's a good hire on paper. Time will ultimately tell. I mean, the Big 12 is just such a meat grinder. You know, it's really hard to make a name for yourself in that league, especially if you're not going to be spending top dollar. You look at what some of the best programs in America, and particularly in that conference, are spending. Texas Tech, a great example, right? I mean, they are just paying out the you-know-what to try to be good at everything, right? I mean, that's one of the few schools I could say with a straight face that is putting their best foot forward in every single major sport that they want to be good at right now from a financial standpoint. And so does Kansas State have the wherewithal to make that kind of investment financially year after year after year to be a consistent Big 12 contender? I don't know. I think we'll ultimately see. Quite frankly, the way they're trying to get out of paying Jerome Tang his buyout is a bit of a red flag for me from the outside looking in. I just look at that as an operation that's trying to pinch pennies here, and I just don't think that's the way you can ultimately succeed and compete at the highest level year in and year out.
Matt, as we get into the games tonight, which is the one that intrigues you the most?
You know, I think Missouri-Miami is a game that's very interesting because it's a 10-7 game, is because the 10 seed's playing just a couple hours away from home in St. Louis. I always feel bad for the higher seeded team that's put at a disadvantage like that. I would say UCF, UCLA for similar reasons, 10-7. Iowa, Clemson, the 8-9 game is always a good game. And I've got my eye on St. John's, Northern Iowa as well. I mean, we all know what Rick Pitino is capable of. We all know how talented the St. John's team is, how hot they've been down the stretch of the season. But they had a very poor showing in the NCAA tournament last season. They've got a very tough draw. Should they get by Northern Iowa tonight, they're probably going to have Kansas in the second round and maybe Duke after that. I just look at that entire East region, and I think it's a murderer's row. Duke, as the so-called number one overall seed, was done no favors by the committee with the draw they were given. And I just think that side of the bracket is going to be an ultimate bloodbath. So pretty much every game in that East region is one that I've got my eyes on.
So High Point, I didn't know much about it, to be honest with you. I knew it was a private school, and I knew that it was on the East Coast in basketball, crazy country. But I start reading up on them. What a school. This is a school that prepares students to interview and getting jobs in like Fortune 500 companies. And there's a big commitment to what they do in basketball. Tell us a little bit about that story and how cool that was.
Yeah, if you're getting profiled by the Wall Street Journal, you're doing something right, at least in that regard, right? I mean, it was a great story from a basketball standpoint, certainly. I mean, to come back from 8 down in the final 3 minutes and to see some of the circus shots that those guys were hitting, tremendous accomplishment. Wisconsin was a team that I thought had a legitimate chance to make a Final Four run this season. This is a team that won at Michigan on the road, won at Purdue, beat Illinois twice away from home. All 4 of those games were top 10 opponents that Wisconsin was able to take down, and yet for whatever reason, they lost a number of games this season that they had no business losing, including yesterday against High Point. But this is a university that has multiple high-end restaurants on its campus because it wants to prepare its students for the job-seeking possibilities that come with a college degree. I believe I read that they have a wing on campus that resembles that of an aircraft carrier because they think it's great to be prepared for a potential business conversation when you're flying on an airplane, depending on who you're sitting next to. So it seems like they see what's coming around corners at that university, and it was great to hear them talk after the win yesterday about the importance of getting these opportunities to play name opponents, whether it was them, whether it was Miami of Ohio. You hear all these national complaints about how poor their scheduling is, and it's really not these guys' faults. No one wants to play these guys. And when you see what's happened in some of these games, particularly SMU Miami the other night in the first 4, you understand why, because there's really good basketball being played at some of these schools, and those are bad losses for the so-called blue bloods when they ultimately do lose those games.
Matt, football scheduling is a nightmare. There's nobody really wants to say the same thing. Half the people say they want to play good games. Half the people say there's no benefit to it. Basketball scheduling was kind of a light in the dark in that because of the Ken Pom, coaches started to do that. But I'm a little afraid that basketball coaches are starting to maybe feel like the football coaches a little bit.
I hope not, but it sounds that way a little bit. And whether they say it or not, you could see, right? Matt Brown at Extra Points, FOIA'd all the emails that Miami, Ohio sent out to major programs last offseason seeking games to schedule, all of which got rejected. So I don't know what the answer is here, right? Because I look at football and what do we love? We love the regular season. We love how every game is consequential. And yet you hear big name coach after big name coach going out there publicly saying, why would we ever play these games? Even Steve Sarkisian kind of put a face on it this year saying, if we didn't play the Ohio State game, we would have been in the playoff. Why would we play that? And I'm paraphrasing here, but that was the gist of what he was saying. I would calmly say, look, the reason you didn't get in is because you lost to a bad Florida team. That has nothing to do with Ohio State, right? You lost 3 games on a schedule that could not afford 3 losses. I don't know what the right answer is. I don't know if playoff expansion ultimately fixes that. I don't love the idea of, well, if we play more games, then the games won't be as meaningful, and therefore we'll play better games because we won't suffer the consequences of losing those games. That seems to be USC's logic with canceling Notre Dame series, and it's like, well, if it's USC Notre Dame or, say, Oklahoma State, pick your rivalry of choice that's dead right now. The whole point of it is there should be consequences for losing these games. That's the whole point of competition. So I really don't like the direction that both sports appear to be going in right now. I just don't know what the remedy is for it, especially when TV networks want better inventory.
Matt Fortuna with us, 365 Sports. We were going over a list of the new coordinators in college football. We were going through some of the Big 12. But you have Muschamp in Texas, among others. Knowles now, of course, has moved on to a new school, too. Is there one, and I know there's about 50 of them, but is there one coordinator that you think might make the biggest impact who's moved to a new school this year?
The one I've got my eye on is Arthur Smith at Ohio State. It comes over from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it has a lot of the same hallmarks of the Matt Patricia hire last year on the defensive side of the ball. I think when Ryan Day made that hire, we all kind of scratch our heads a little bit. We thought this guy had not coached a solid defense in about 7 or 8 years, and he hadn't coached at the college level in multiple decades. Similar with Arthur Smith, but shoot, Matt Patricia, passed his first test with flying colors. Now, you look at the combine results, and he had a lot of toys to work with on that side of the ball. So I don't know how much of it was Matt Patricia versus just the fact that he had very good football players there. Probably a combination of both. But when you look at Julian Sayin, a returning Heisman finalist at quarterback, Jeremiah Smith, arguably the best player in college football coming into the season in 2026, and Ryan Day, essentially seceding play calling to Arthur Smith. I know he did it technically to Brian Hartline last year, but it always felt like more of a big brother situation, right? Like the minute Brian Hartline got the USF job and tried to pull a double duty, Ryan Smith stepped in and said, no, I'm going to call the offense during the playoff. Did that ultimately hurt them against Miami? It's really hard to say. It was just a 1-game sample size. But to see Ryan Day again go to the pro ranks, similar to what he did with Chip Kelly, albeit a guy he was very familiar with, and say, this is yours to run, here are the keys. I think that's very fascinating, especially when you look at Arthur Smith's resume at the NFL level and you look at this recent success Ryan Day's had with NFL guys on his staff.
Okay, here's my question. Can Arthur Smith fill, or who has to fill that recruiting void that they lose by losing Brian Hartline to USF and putting him in the state where he's the best at it too?
Great question on multiple fronts. Now, my understanding is Arthur Smith's not technically going to be an active recruiter. We've seen Ohio State do this. We've seen Brett Bielema at Illinois do this. A lot of the bigger, Big Ten and SEC programs have taken advantage of the no staff size rule. And what that means is essentially they can hire however many coaches they want. They can only activate 10 to recruit off campus at a time. And my understanding is Arthur Smith's not, for the most part, not going to be one of those coaches who recruits off the road. He's going to be focused on game planning and development of his own roster 365 days a year. So who fills that void from a recruiting standpoint? We'll see, right? I mean, look, Brian Hartline had a generational run as far as acquiring talented wide receivers at Ohio State. Does it just kind of sustain itself now, right? You have Carnell Tate, who's probably going to be a top 5 pick, who just came out of that program. You have Jeremiah Smith, who's obviously going to be a high draft pick after this year. You could go down the list, all the great receivers in the NFL right now who came from Ohio State under Brian Hartline's tutelage. Is it just is Ohio State wide receiver you right now, or was that a Brian Hartline product? I think it's probably a combination of both. But I do think that I'd be surprised if they're hurt that much by the departure of Brian Hartline on the recruiting trail. Not to say he didn't do a great job, but it's Ohio State. I think the brand, the program is bigger than one individual. You look at what's going on the field, what's going to be happening there this spring. I think they'll be just fine. I mean, they just had 2 5-star receivers, freshmen and sophomores, leave for Notre Dame because they didn't see a path to playing time, because there's so much talent on that roster at that position as is. So I really don't think they're going to miss a beat.
One thing, Matt, there's some rules that were approved, changed, et cetera, tweaked, including the targeting rule. I saw this that also came down, the oversight, because we hear about nobody has enough money, right? The Oversight Committee approved a blanket waiver for off-campus recruiting during the 2026 spring contact period, and a waiver allowing FBS programs to now designate 16 staff members who can participate in off-campus recruiting. Wasn't that number once 9 and then moved to 10?
Yeah, and it took a while to even get from 9 to 10, right? I think it was 2017 when everyone went out and made a 10th assistant coach hire, assuming that they were going to have that extra slot to fill on the road, and it got shelved for another year. So you're essentially paying someone a full-time salary to do I don't want to say not full-time work, but not the full job that these coaches were initially hired to do at the time. So it's pretty crazy to see how quickly this thing has risen to the level it has. The rich continue to get richer. I'm sure if you're a Group of 5 program or even an FCS program and you've got some diamonds in the rough on your roster, you're thinking, it's going to be even harder to hide these guys from the blue bloods now that they've got more sharks in the water, so to speak, working on their behalf. But it is pretty crazy when you think about it to look at just how much more powerful the already powerful programs have become in that regard.
Matt, thank you. Glad you feel better. Get some liquids in you and a good weekend of food. Thanks for your time and what you do with the Inside Zone.
Appreciate it. Nothing gets me better than watching basketball from the couch.
Absolutely.
That's for sure.
Got a bunch of that going on the rest of tonight and into the weekend, too. The World Baseball Classic, Craig, lots of the time will be the one that does the viewership numbers. 10,784,000 viewers, the most watched WBC telecast ever. The championship game, Venezuela and the United States, it peaked at just over 12 million viewers late in the game when, of course, probably about the time Harper homered and then Venezuela got the winning run in the ninth.
Yeah, it's a nice number for the WBC, and I think that there is a lot of momentum, as I've talked about quite a bit this week, for the sport of baseball that hopefully they can capture. Although immediately their bum-ass commissioner turns around and starts talking about mid-season tournaments like it's the NBA, and I just think that's a terrible idea. Now, if it's the WBC, when it rolls around in 3 or 4 years and you find a way to make that work with the All-Star break and everything else, okay, but I don't think it's bad where it is, and I don't know that moving it to midseason actually makes as much of a difference as people are trying to pretend that it would. Now everybody's going to be 100%. I don't think Paul Skeens is going 8 innings just because it's the middle of the season. I think they're still going to be taken care of with their Major League Baseball team in most mind more than anything else. So I don't know. I'm torn on the midseason thing. I'll wait to see how the Olympics goes, as it will everybody else, I'm sure, and maybe that's super successful. I think the Olympics, there's already the Redeem Team storyline, as I mentioned the other day. It's going to be a whole buildup of like, here's Bryce Harper and here's Kyle Schwarber and here's all these guys, and they're pissed about the WBC and they're pissed about having not won it in forever, and they're pissed about losing to Venezuela, and they're here to kick ass and take names in their own country. And so I think there will be a lot of good buildup for that. But, yeah, that's a really good number, and it was a massive increase by nearly half from 2023. It was also 156% increase across the entire tournament from 2023 for just all of the games averaged out. They averaged over 1 million per game. So I think they're smelling the money and they're smelling the opportunity, and I hope they have the right people in charge to make it work.
Capitalize on it. Like right now, the field's wide open because their media deals are very much in flux all over the place and have been changing. I'll say this before we wrap it up and go to the Chuck Norris top 5, which is really hard to do considering it's Chuck freaking Norris. But I believe this when it comes to the Olympics. I'm going to keep saying it. If a country invents a sport, they should be in the medal round every year.
Oh, yeah.
That's the bottom line. You don't have to win it. But you have to be in the medal round.
The problem
you
for
have to be
Team
medal
USA
contention.
is they haven't won anything in baseball in these WBCs here of late.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they need to, especially if we're going to see Major League Baseball players, which is not official, but they've basically said as much as they possibly can without saying they're going to allow them to play. And I think watching the WBC, they would be complete morons to not want them to play in the Olympics to take advantage of that. But, yeah, it's time for Team USA to win. And, no, they absolutely have no excuses in any year. I don't care how good the competition gets. It's like Canada not medaling in hockey. It just is. I don't care if you get bronze, but you better get a medal of some sort. And so,
you're on if you invent a sport, you're on the podium.
Right, you better be.
That's it. That's the minimum level of expectation.
I agree with that. I was looking like who invented tiddlywinks, but that's not an Olympic sports. I just don't know why that got in my head because a lot of weird things.
But
do.
yeah, that's why the Norwegians. That's
answers.
why the Norwegians are so good at skiing.
University of Cambridge, by the way.
No.
I mean,
but
the Winter Olympics, Sweden, Norway, Finland.
If I'm watching speed skating and there's not a Dutch guy in the top 3, then you know what? They need to elect a new president.
Well,
bottom line, the Netherlands have failed.
That's a great rating. I don't know what I was expecting really, but massive increases across the board from 2023. And I know 2023 generated a little bit of excitement, but it's not like what it felt like from start to finish for this tournament.
No, they had Shohei Japan against the United States in that one.
Yeah,
right?
in the final Shohei and Japan against the U.S. and the Japanese won that one, so the U.S. is due. They're really due, and the next opportunity is L.A. 2028 Olympics, so they better handle their business. They'll be playing in Dodger Stadium, too. Maybe that will work against them with Ohtani and like half the Dodgers playing for Team Japan, it feels like.
Well, and like every other good Dodger that's not American playing for somebody. So
yes, Venezuelan or whoever.
All right, we mentioned off the top of the show today that Chuck Norris passed away. The legendary Chuck Norris. Paul's Top 5 will look back at his career and some moments, etc. And then we'll have the wheel, we'll have the quizzes, and we'll also have the poll results from Andrew Valade and more. Logan Begessi and Rez are running the mothership today. Garrett was here earlier. Andrew is still here. This is 365 Sports.
This 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson and Brad Wilson in Waco, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe, with an individualized approach to addressing your financial needs, including education, savings, planning for retirement, and protection strategies. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, making sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Now it's time for 365 Sports. This is Paul Catalina's Top 5.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5. And today, we honor a man who Earth lost today at the age of 86. And Chuck Norris, as we're going to talk Chuck Norris roles. Chuck Norris, a man who it only took 20 minutes to watch 60 minutes. A man who, when he jumped in a lake, he didn't get wet. The lake got Chuck Norris. A man who once won an underwater breathing contest with a fish. A man who did so many things in so many great movies and who could refer to himself in the fourth person. We could go on with all these things. When he was born, he drove his mom home from the hospital. All that for Chuck Norris, who made some legendary films. Now, was Chuck Norris an award-winning actor, an Academy Award winner, any of that? No. But he made awesome action movies, and he did a lot of really cool things to entertain us. So let's honor the man today in the top 5. Number 5. Name me a more iconic Chuck Norris picture than this one from Missing in Action, which was the first of a trilogy where he played Colonel James Braddock, who was, in fact, missing in action. But think of Chuck Norris popping out of the water with a friggin' cannon in his hand. That is the image that's burned on my brain when I think of Chuck Norris. Number 4, Dodgeball. You know how awesome Chuck Norris was? He's in this movie for 18 seconds. He has one line and he goes a thumbs up, and that's it. That's how good Chuck Norris was. And not a comic actor either, but leaned into the part that Ben Stiller wrote for him and made it good in that just less than a minute on screen. Unbelievable. That's class right there. That's power. Number 3, Lone Wolf McQuade. This one, a PG movie, by the way, starred him and David Carradine that ends with a great karate fight. This is maybe where you start to see in 1983 that Chuck Norris believed, as we found out in Family Guy, that all problems can be solved by kicking. Lone Wolf McQuade is 2 legends of martial arts movies, and David Carradine of Kung Fu, and of course Chuck Norris of many karate-inspired films. But I highly recommend it, and if you have a younger kid who says, hey, can I watch a Chuck Norris movie? This one was PG, so actually one of the better reviewed movies of his career. Number 2, how can you leave this one out? The Way of the Dragon, 2 legends, Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris. Even though Chuck Norris was 86, I can still say, probably gone from this earth way too soon. But Bruce Lee also gone from this earth way too soon. And this was where Chuck Norris burst on the scene in this film, The Way of the Dragon, which is Bruce Lee's absolute opus. It's absolutely fantastic, especially if you do like kung fu, karate movies. This is kind of required viewing. And number 1, I kind of want to put Way of the Dragon number 1 because I'm more of a movie guy than a network TV guy, but like, let's face it. When people of my generation think of Chuck Norris, most of them will think of Walker, Texas Ranger, and the many episodes that he brought. I was not a huge fan or follower of this show, but whenever I did watch it, I enjoyed it because, once again, kicking. I say all this in jest, and I do wish Chuck Norris to rest in peace because you did do a lot for the American entertainment community, and we loved it. We appreciated it. Thank you, Chuck. Rest in peace. Let's spin the wheel. And here we go. I get so excited when I hear the clicking, beeping of the wheel. Okay, and here we go. What's one store you enjoy walking around in? Andrew likes Michael's because I guess he's into arts and crafts.
Yeah, you got flowers, fake flowers, and all that googly stuff is what I call it.
When's the last time you were in a Michael's?
No, really what? Because I needed to get a picture on the wall, and I went in there, and I also frames. The one that's on Valley Mills. You have a picture actually. Like a picture of the beach or something.
Well, this is timely for me because I've recently rediscovered my enjoyment of going to a Barnes & Noble. And went there a couple of months ago for the first time in literally over 10 years. Had not been in a Barnes & Noble. And walked into the one here, and it was like just nostalgia slapping me in the face and just the... I don't know. I just love that place. I love the decorations. I love all of the different things, the trinkets and books and everything. So I've now made it a point to go back somewhat regularly and just look around. So, yeah, I'd say Barnes & Noble is my answer right now.
Mine is any bookstore. I love to go at any kind of bookstore.
You worked at one.
I did. I worked at a Borders, and Barnes & Noble stood the test of time because they did not make a deal with Amazon.
True.
I'll tell you this quick story. My first week there, they sent out this email, and they were getting us trained on their new book ordering system. And they said, hey, there's this great company called Amazon.com that if we don't have a book in stock, we can have it shipped to their house within 3 to 4 days, free shipping and all that. And it sounded really good. And then, like, right as I'm, like, walking out, I'm like, wouldn't that put us out of business?
Yeah.
Yeah. And guess what? It did.
It sure
especially when you realize the books aren't coming from just some straight Amazon store. It's like Tanya in her apartment in Brooklyn has bought 1,000 copies of something and she's selling them off one by one on her Amazon page. Like Amazon is just so easy, but it's very hit or miss on some things. And the longer the time goes on, I feel like it's not the best quality all the time, but it's so convenient that it's hard to beat.
It is nuts that I could order something at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday that's there at
2
2 o'clock
hours,
in the
yeah.
morning.
Yeah,
And we have a distribution center now, and a lot of places
Have you
do.
done the drone delivery
it is
yet?
I haven't done it because it's going
delivery?
to drop it off in my backyard, and I don't know where in the
if
backyard
I
it's
walk
going to
out and
land.
drop it,
You can't really have it, and I don't think if you live in an apartment type place, it would work all that well.
Yeah, because I have the stairwell and then a deep into the
They could drop it in the backyard, but okay, what if the weather's bad? I'd rather them just put it on my
It is
porch.
insane, though.
I saw one where they just dropped it in the middle of the street,
Yeah.
just in front of somebody's house. So it's hit or miss.
Maybe
on that part.
we're having an issue at the complex where there are Amazon packages not even anywhere close to the condo number.
probably
I wonder it's the drones.
The drones are the driver.
By the way, I got to say, I'm 9-0 today at the tournament.
Oh, congratulations.
Utah State won. I picked them to beat Villanova. I got all of them so far at 9-0.
Okay, for the first trivia question, let's go to Smokey.
All right, here we go with the trivia. In which decade did the first and only verifiably perfect NCAA tournament bracket reach the national title game? Was it in the 20s? Was it in the teens? Or was it in the early 2000s or that decade? It never happened. I want to think somebody actually
I think in the
had.
in the tens it did happen.
I think somebody did go flawless, which is honestly that's stupid. Like that person should be sent to.
Well, I would never
don't-
do one again.
I don't know that that's happened. I don't know that anybody's ever had a perfect.
Well, now we got
bracket.
to find a decade.
Okay.
I just feel like that. It there were 10,000 perfect brackets entering this morning, and that's. I know there's 26 million, but that's stupid good.
Yeah.
So
it's never happened.
Craig.
Okay.
Craig saved us. We get a win for that.
Yeah.
We're killing Andrew this week.
Yeah. Go ahead and read the answer.
I
there.
will try to. Despite millions of attempts every March, no one has ever recorded a verifiably perfect bracket. An all-time record belongs to an Ohio man in 2019 who correctly predicted 49 consecutive games. If you were to just guess or flip a coin for every matchup, your odds are perfect bracket are, oh my.
Oh, yeah, guess
I
what
can't,
this
yeah, like a bunch of numbers. You're statistically more likely to find a unicorn in your backyard, which would be cool.
Yeah, unless unicorns aren't nice. You ever think about that?
Well, you wonder about the snaz, yeah.
That'd be a quintillion, I believe, is what that is. A quintillion.
But I watched a great movie called Death of a Unicorn, and the unicorns weren't nice. So,
Really? Well,
yeah.
People got to ruin everything.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I didn't think that had ever happened. I feel like we would have heard that advertised of this is James Jenkins. He's had the only man ever that has
he
a
would be
perfect
the
bracket.
Ken Jennings of that.
He brought on ESPN every year, and I don't think we've ever seen that. So
By the way,
apparently we
unicorns are generally portrayed as gentle, shy, magical
they're always
creatures.
nice.
Yeah.
Almost always.
All right. Next trivia.
According to medical data, which of the following surgeries sees a massive 50% spike in the United States during the first week of March Madness every year? Knee replacements, wisdom tooth extraction, vasectomies, or colonoscopy?
Colonoscopies. Paul, you just had one.
Colonoscopy is only a day, so I wouldn't schedule it. Plus, you're going to miss time. Vasectomies
Then
is the answer. It's the same with the Masters.
You would fall asleep and not be able to watch the games.
Yeah. So what you do is you get your vasectomy on a Wednesday, and then you
have a couple of days to let that swelling
and
go
then
down.
you ride it out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday with the ice pack.
Yeah, the scissors there. Can you imagine if those are the ones that cut?
Wisdom tooth extraction, there's no way. Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that during this week if I didn't have to. Yeah, vasectomy, nice graphic.
Oh
very
my
nice, Andrew.
God, Andrew.
It's a real phenomenon. Doctors report a huge surge in vasectomies during the opening round of the tournament. Why? Because the recovery requires 48 to 72 hours of resting on the couch with an ice pack, which just happens to be the exact amount of time needed to watch all 32 games of the first round without feeling guilty about skipping chores. So,
or maybe the first couple of rounds of the Masters.
Well, I have a friend.
You do?
I do. Whose name I will tell you after the broadcast, who scheduled his during the Masters.
Matt?
I mean, it's smart.
I'm not going to tell you who it is, and
I
it wasn't
got,
him.
Okay.
Listen, I'll
Doug
just tell
McNamee?
you, you're in the wheelhouse. You're in the wheelhouse.
Well,
yeah.
Play-by-play for Baylor stuff?
No.
Okay,
No.
Keep asking, and he'll keep narrowing it down for
Yeah.
you.
No.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get to the poll questions.
Go ahead, Smokey.
No, is your bracket already busted? 75% of you are not in good shape. I'm 0.0001%, 25%.
Well, if 75% is already broken, then you pick some bad teams in the Final Four.
Yeah,
because your bracket's not broken until you lose a Final Four team.
I was listening to a podcast this morning, and a guy's like 12-2 in the first 14 games, and yet he's screwed because he had BYU in the Elite Eight. So he's going to lose points no matter how well he does. And so you could have a really, really good start, but it depends on who you had going into the second weekend. But that's 75%.
So bracket busted is having a Final Four team gone at this point.
I would tell you, if you still have your Final Four in and most of your Sweet 16 or in most of your Elite Eight, like, you're okay.
So I'm okay. I'm a little over 77%. I did find it funny, though, on ESPN where they show their celebrity brackets, which is just like all of their hosts, basically. Like Kevin Nagandi's at 98.3%. And there's a few others that are like 90% or above. Freddie Coleman, 92.2%. Stephen A., 92.2%. Mike Greenberg, 98.3%. And then
God help us.
Tick Vitale, 77.5%. Jay Billis, 77.5%.
Yeah.
So the basketball guys are exactly where I am, actually. I've got all my Final Four teams, but I will say that what's funny to look at is Nicole Briscoe, who I see on SportsCenter, 18.2%.
Oh, wow.
How is that even possible? Like, I'm thinking Matt Berry, 30.5%.
Oh, that's pathetic.
Watching too much football, I guess.
I think sometimes the basketball guys get a little too overly analytical.
Probably.
Oh, like Jay Billis has Texas in the Sweet 16, so it might bring him back a little bit.
Yeah, but Jay is just like, he's so smart and he knows everything. But sometimes you get too much in the numbers and then you're like, okay. I think I promise you a lot of people had St. Mary's beating Texas A&M because they looked at the number.
That's one of the few I missed.
And I didn't because I was like, man, A&M, Bucky's going to run. And that's just not something that St. Mary's has ever seen. And we look at it's Pop Isaacs and AG and Riley Griffin and all these guys who are super athletic. It's just a different thing. All right, the last poll.
I'm 19-4, by the way.
Okay. Which luxury white MC are you riding with? Eminem wins at 50%. BC Boys at 22%. Weird Al at 20%.
Is that Yankovic?
Yeah, Weird Al Yankovic.
Yes.
And Mac Miller at 8%. Craig, I'm interested with you on this. I think
there's no question.
I think Eminem is one of the greatest of all time, not just white rappers. He's one of the greatest rappers of all time. And I love the BC Boys. Mac Miller was a little bit late for me, but I knew he was really talented. And Weird Al's just kind of a different thing. But I'm a huge Eminem fan.
Yeah, I love Eminem and have for a really long time. So he would have been my choice here as well. And you can debate on the GOATs, but he's certainly in the conversation. There's nobody anywhere that can say he's not at least like brought up in the discussion about that. Just basically just on record sold alone. Now there will be caveats. Oh well, it's only because he's white. He's and all of that. But he's in the conversation as one of the greats of all time. That's not even a question. One of the best-selling artists, period, of genre all time. So yeah, this was the easy answer. Although the Beastie Boys, I think for the older crowd especially, they definitely did their thing, and there is no Eminem without the Beastie Boys. There's no Mac Miller without the Beastie Boys. So, yeah, they deserve their flowers. And then Mac Miller is just a really big what if. He had some really good stuff in his career early on, but he's just a massive died too young to really know what he could have turned into because at the end there – he was having high-profile relationships that were all over the tabloids with Ariana Grande, he was with for a while, and I know they broke up before he died. But, yeah, he was a really talented and well-loved guy for a particular genre of or a particular time of hip-hop fans, and he's a big what-if. And then Weird Al's a legend. I mean, I'm surprised he got nearly as many votes as the Beastie Boys, but we got some people who love the fun-loving hip-hop side of things, I guess.
The Weird Al biopic that they did with Daniel Radcliffe is one of the funniest things I've seen recently. Really? And it's like it's because it's a parody of Weird Al. So his biopic is not real. It's a parody of
that makes sense.
It because he writes all the parody songs. He's got the Weird Al, when you look at it, he's got like the most crazy eclectic group of friends in the world.
Oh yeah.
It's like all these people like, oh yeah, like I'll see him like, well, Weird Al Yankovic and I are friends, and it's like John Cena and
it's amazing how many people, like if it's Eminem who's had covers done or any of these big artists, it's such an honor to have Weird Al want to do your, I remember reading about Nirvana and him doing, what was his, Smells Like Teen Spirit, but it was about the deodorant.
Yeah.
And his cover of that. And Nirvana was apparently oh my God, Weird Al wants to cover a song.
He and Dave Grohl are still good friends to this day.
I'm sure,
Eat It was the one that put him on the map, right?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Rez. Thank you as well to Logan. One final note to wrap up the week, because we like college football and the NFL. The NFL is going to start the season. I've had this for 3 or 4 days. That Thanksgiving Eve this year, which is another day that college football could use. Maybe they're playing the Mountain West Conference or whatever, but college football and the NFL said, we'll just take that day too.
Well, it helps to have rules and people all on the same side of things to go and make things happen quickly and expeditiously and without a tug of war occurring at every bend.
Yep.
So, I'm sure being pros gets you that opportunity to go cover a bunch of different holiday dates, whereas in college it's just sort of all over the place. But that's smart on their part. I mean, I'll definitely be watching a game the night before Thanksgiving. Hell yeah, give me some NFL.
Good luck to UCF against UCLA and KU tonight against Cal Baptist. And it's been a pretty good day for the Big 12, as we told you about the scores. For Paul, Catalina, Craig, Smoak, thank you, our great sponsors. Our audience, thank you very much. Have a great weekend. We'll know who's in the Sweet 16 when we see you again Monday at 3. This is 365 Sports. I'm David Smoak. Have a great weekend.